This video is basically everything that you're going to need in order to raise Hyprland, especially using Lua, okay? I've made lots of videos in the past where I've taught you to raise Hyprland using the Hyperlang configuration syntax, but this time it's going to be in Lua as you see over here, okay? I teach you everything step by step. Now there is one thing to keep in mind, and that is I can only teach you how to do this properly if you watch the video through to the end, okay? It's not likely that you're going to get the kind of setup that you're seeing right over here unless you follow every single word that I tell you to do, okay? Unless you follow every instruction, do what I tell you to, you're not going to be able to do it, okay? If you're distracted by one thing or the other, your setup is going to remain incomplete and you're basically not going to get this, okay? This is what we're going to be building at the end. So if you want to actually make sure that your setup works properly and then looks as pretty and as fast and as feature-rich as this one over here, okay? Do not neglect completing this video. Okay, I need you to complete this for your own good. Okay, with that said, let's begin. Hyprland has switched to using Lua for configuration since version 0.55, and so we're going to be doing the same thing. Now, to set up configuration in the first place to the point where you can actually start doing stuff, you're going to have to go ahead and get a Lua file. So if I go to .config hyper, okay, you are going to see that right now there is a hyperland.conf file. Okay, now we want to replace this .conf file for a .lua file so that we can actually start writing our configuration in Lua, because the wiki as well has all of its configuration in Lua now that it's been updated. So let's do that. So I'll just open the browser. I'm going to pass in &disown over here so that I can actually, close the terminal without having the browser close on me as well. Okay, this ampersand, basically &disown in this context means take the process that comes before it, basically the command, and then detach it from the currently running terminal so that you can have it running in the background. So right now, look, if I close this terminal, it's not going to close the window as well. So that's a neat little trick that you can use. Now let's go over to wiki.hyper.land, and let's actually make this easier for you to see temporarily, okay? Brief though the moment may be. Let's go to config hyper and then hyperland.conf, hyperland.conf. By the way, for this specific Lua configuration syntax change, this is not going to fully be phased out. The old hyperland.conf syntax is not going to be fully phased out until version 0.56 or 0.57. So if you have a config that is using the old .conf style and you would like to keep using that, you can go check out my other video. But trust me, you're going to want to use this new syntax that you have over here, because not only is it much better, it allows you more configuration. You can also be rest assured that it's not going anywhere else anytime soon. Like every config is going to be using the new Lua syntax. So you might as well just use this one. So this monitor, 2560, change resolution 2560 by 1440, and then change the scale to something like 1.5. 1.5 is too much. Let's just 1.25. Okay, perfect. Now you can actually end up seeing stuff, which is awesome. Let's right quit and okay. Now here you want to just basically not actually go to the Hyperland wiki. We're going to be using that site later on, but now you want to go to the GitHub to get an example Lua file. So github.com/hyperland/hyperland/examples. We're going to find, okay, if it's not there, then just go to Hyperland's thing itself, example. Now in here, you want to just download this hyperland.lua file. So click on this Lua file. You can either click on raw and then save page as, and then save it to your Hyperland, config folder, or you can just copy and paste this using Vim. Let's just go the raw variant so that you don't have to do any copy pasting shenanigans. Let's do that. Now we want to go to home, press Ctrl H to show hidden files and folders, .config inside of Hyper. You want to just put down hyperland.lua over there. Okay, now you want to go ahead and remove the existing file. So remove .config hyperland.conf. And of course, everything is going to fail. I just had my monitor pop up. Now, what you're going to want to do is close. So log out of Hyperland and then log back in. And then you are going to be using the new Lua syntax. Okay, awesome. Now we are using the new Lua syntax. If I open my current Lua file and then show you what's going on inside of there, I have made basically no changes whatsoever except just a couple of monitor ones. So let me show you that. Hyperland.lua. So in here, you will notice that I have just increased the scale so that you can actually see stuff on my main monitor, and then disabled the other monitor that I have. Okay, now where do we actually go from here? Well, because we are using Lua, okay, we're going to be able to get help from our text editor. So my text editor of choice, whenever I'm personally making Hyperland setups and new ISOs, is going to be VS Code, because it strikes the perfect balance between being a really good IDE as well as a text editor, and then not just that, but you can make it look pretty freaking good as well. And it comes in extremely handy in terms of racing, because it can basically be made to look as fantastic as you can possibly imagine. So we're going to be using that. Let's just look up VS Codium. Okay, this is the open source version of VS Code. It's basically VS Code with all of the telemetry removed. Use whichever version that you want to, right? You can either use VS Codium bin, or you can use, code itself. Okay, that's the executable. So I'm going to launch that. Just call it Codium. So if I launch that, it's going to pop up VS Code right over here. Great. Now, what you want to do is, let's just zoom in. Now here, you want to open your hyprland.conf file. So go to config, you want to open folder and open your hyper folder. So now you have hyprland.lua over here. Yes, I trust the authors, so it doesn't bother you anymore. And there you go. You actually see syntax highlighting, which is great. Now, if you want more syntax highlighting, you just go over to extensions and then you can look for Lua. You will be able to find a formatter as well as, syntax highlighting for this thing. So there's one with 2.1 million downloads. So let's just download this one. You can trust publisher and install. Okay, now you have that. And if you open this, there you go. You see all the colors, and then you see whatever is not working here as well. Seems like there's some issues that it's being pointed out. There you go. It says undefined global. We're going to fix that in just a second. Okay. Now let's just keep that in workspace 2. Now you want to open the browser. Let's open Brave. Open Brave. Go to this place. Go to the Hyprland wiki, and there what you're going to do is, yep, there it is. Here you will want to go over to getting started. Installation. Somewhere here you will find installation instructions for your, configuration instructions. We're looking for, yep. So this part basically. So you want to go to start under configuring, and over here, just scroll down until you find this one, general Hyprland Lua tips. So auto completions. In order to get auto completions working properly inside of VS Code, you want to click on this button and then create a settings.json file inside of VS Code, .vs Code folder. So let's do that. New folder, you want to make this call it .vs Code. Now inside of that, you're going to want to add in this stuff. So inside there, you just make a new file and then you call that, let's see, it's going to be called settings.json. So you do that, settings.json. Inside the settings.json, you just copy this and then you paste right over here. Save, and then there you go. The issues are immediately fixed. Now, if you are not having anything inside of user share hyper stubs, so user share hyper stubs, yes, so you should have an hl.meta.lua. If there's nothing over there, then you're going to want to switch to the Hyprland Git version, which means that you will be on the latest version, which means that you're going to be able to access this, file. Now, chances are you're not going to have the Lua syntax actually working and being used by Hyprland unless you have this file inside of user share hyper stubs. So make sure that you have this, make sure that you're on the latest version of Hyprland, and then you can get started. Now, I will be using Vim because that is what I am most used to. So let's go get the extension. Let's get Vim, trust publisher. There you go. Do that. There you go. Now we have Vim. Great. So let's get started with configuring. Now, if you notice, there is quite a lot of stuff for us to go through, okay? You have monitors, programs, and then auto start, environment variables. Basically, there's quite a lot of different stuff for us to go through. Now, instead of having everything in one file, okay, even the Hyprland wiki recommends this. What you're supposed to do is break up your hyprland.lua file into a bunch of different files. Yes. Now, when you do that, it makes it much easier in order for you to maintain because you don't have every single setting inside of one particular file. There's a separation of concern. So let's say that you wanted to deal with only your keybinds, for example. You don't have to go ahead, keep scrolling and scrolling until you find your keybind section, which is somewhere all the way over here. Now, right now, it's not actually that bad because the config's only 361 lines, right? But when you start to add more window rules, and then when your config starts to get more complicated with if statements, and then custom keybinds, and then custom functionality, because Lua is pretty much a full-fledged programming language, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with that. It gets your hyprland.lua file quite cluttered, so that's not exactly what you want. What you want to do is split it into multiple different files. That's something that I explain quite in detail. Now, what you're going to want to do is just get rid of these comments because we don't need that. And let's get started with making the first file. So the structure that I personally use on my main machine is going to be adding a new folder, calling it modules. And inside of the modules folder, you're going to have all of the different modules for whatever that you're going to have, like monitors and then programs and then auto start and then whatever else that you're going to have. Let's do that. So inside of modules, we need monitors.lua. Now inside of monitors.lua, you can just copy and paste this. We'll get into configuring each of the different parts just in a bit, but just copy and paste as you see right over here. And then make sure to include, okay? I've done this so many times to the point where I actually make the file, but then I forget to include it, and then I just scratch my head for 15 minutes trying to figure out why it's not working because the file has not been included. So you're going to want to require it. So require mod name. That mod name is going to be monitors.lua. So modules/monitor. Okay, it's going to be inside a string, modules.monitors. Do it that way and save. And as you can see, nothing freaks out, just like it did last time when I got rid of the hyprland.conf file. And nothing freaks out because the file is still being included, which is fantastic. Next thing is going to be the programs. Now, I would personally not actually do it this way. Instead of separating out my programs into a completely different file, I would put it at the top of my keybinds file. So because we're on the topic of keybinds itself, let's go ahead and make that as well. So you want to go to binds.lua. Inside of binds.lua, I'm going to copy what you're seeing here into there. So that's the animations. There you go. Key binding section. Just copy all of this. Take that right until here. Delete. Then you can just paste that here. If you have no idea how to use Vim key bindings, by the way, it's not really that big of a deal. You can use Nano or anything else. Just use VS Code. Don't use the Vim extension as all. Now copy and then paste this here as well. So my programs, that's going to go here. Wait, I copied it, so that's how you paste it. There you go. There's no more errors, and that's pretty great. Let's save the file. Get rid of this. Next thing is auto start, so you're going to be copying and pasting that as well. Now, for auto start, let's actually put down all of the apps that we're going to use. So here, you're going to auto start.lua, copy and paste this part, copy and then paste. Now here, hl.on hyprland.start, you're going to run a function. So here is the part where you're actually starting to use a lot more Lua syntax and just basically programming features. Now, terminal, you can just get rid of that because we're not starting it. As an example, let me just keep only waybar for now, okay? Only waybar, and then this is what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so HL is likely a Hyprland global object, okay? Then .on. This on part is an event listener. So basically on hyprland.start, that's basically whenever Hyprland starts, you're going to run an anonymous function. An anonymous function in this case is going to be a lot like an arrow function that you have in JavaScript, okay? It's basically saying, look, just run whatever is inside of between this function line here and then this end line over here. So here we're just hl.execcmd. This is how you execute a command, and that's going to be waybar. So whenever Hyprland starts, you're going to execute this particular line. Now, we're going to also want to add this for stuff like sway and C, as well as, let's see what else we could add it for. Now, waybar and sway and C, that's what we're going to be using most likely. And if we need anything else, we can get to it later. But for now, let's actually keep this commented out so that it does not get in the way of anything we want to do. And just get rid of this, or actually, hold on. Yeah, let's just do this. Comment it this way, so that it'll be easier to get rid of it later, the comments later on. There you go. Now, inside of hyprland.lua, we can just get rid of this. Make sure that modules.binds and autostart are included, by the way. You actually have to do that. Next thing is going to be your environment variables. Now, if you're on NVIDIA, there's going to be a certain set of environment variables that you're going to want to use. Use those, and then you're likely not going to have any problems, okay? If you do end up running into problems with environment variables, the best thing that I would ask you to do is just trial and error, okay? Test different environment variables, see which ones actually end up making your system better, and then which ones end up causing stuff to break, okay? Most likely, if you just use the ones that I give you, they're not going to break, like nothing's going to actually end up breaking. But then on some machines, on some NVIDIA cards, you just can't tell. So you're going to have to test that one out on your own. Here, you want to new file and then call this env.lua. Inside of env.lua, copy and paste this stuff. Copy, or you can actually even cut and then paste that right over here. Paste it there. Now, what else you want to do is just require this line here. As soon as you finish making a new module, you just want to require modules.env in this case. Get rid of this. There you go. Now for the environment variables, let's go over to the Hyprland wiki so I can show you. Here, just look for environment variables. In here, you will find quite a lot of different environment variables. So the ones that we're going to be configuring and using are going to be the toolkit backend ones, XDG specifications, the Qt ones as well as the NVIDIA specific ones. Now, I use only 2 of the NVIDIA specific ones because I had an issue where OBS just wouldn't record. That's why I say you're going to have to use a bit of trial and error in order to get the variables working properly. But yeah, so let's start with the toolkit backend ones. You can just copy and paste these into this, into the file. So let's do that. In here, what are you going to start with? Let's just call this toolkit backend, and then you just copy and paste. So I'm going to do that here. Copy and paste. This one is for GTK. So you use Wayland for all GTK applications if available. If not, you try X11. Same thing, except this one is for Qt. Like that. Now this one is for running SDL2 applications on Wayland. There you go. Then you have Clutter backend. Put that one here as well. Next thing is going to be XDG specifications. So here you have different variables that basically are telling XDG that, look, we're on Hyprland. And most likely where this is going to be used is inside of NeoFetch, for example, okay? When you set XDG variables, most likely NeoFetch is going to get the things from there. Like it's going to get the DE and the WM from the XDG specification. So you're going to want to set that as well. XDG. In here, you just copy all 3 of these and then paste that like so. Fantastic. Next thing is for Qt. So for Qt, here you will want to put down different separate section, and then the auto screen scale factor enables automatic scaling. Now that you can either choose for it to be 1.25 or 1.5. Because right now I have the scale set to 1.25, might as well set that to 1.25 as well. hl.env, again, here you're telling the Qt applications to use Wayland instead of X11. Disable window decorations. You do not want that because you're on a window manager. It doesn't exactly make sense for you to have window decorations if you're not going to be able to see them. Now this one is the most important one when it comes to Qt theming because this dictates what application you're going to actually use in order to configure Qt styles. So in our case, it's going to be Qt6CT. There you go. Now NVIDIA specific, I'm going to be using GBM backend and then GLX vendor library name. That's it. I'm going to be using these 2. Or yeah, actually, let's add this one as well. I'm pretty sure it was this. So for NVIDIA, just add this one, libva driver name, and this one, GBM backend as well. Now, actually, let me just check by going onto my main user and then seeing what I have there for environment variables. Because if I do not get this wrong and I log out and log back in, it's not going to be a fun time for me. So it'd be inside of home user 0, then .config, hyper modules, env.lua. Okay, it's libva driver name, actually GLX vendor library name, so we gotta get those 2. So this one as well as GLX vendor. Let's copy this and paste it right here. Fantastic. So let's close that out. Yes, close. And then that is going to be our environment variables done. Next thing is permissions. You're 99 times out of 100, you're not going to want to require permissions because this is something that you're just not going to need. Okay, it adds in an extra step of complexity for just literally nothing. Most likely, okay, you're not going to require this because, okay, just think about it, okay? Hyprland on its own is freaking so secure, and most likely because we are just tech guys and girls, we're not going to, just randomly execute any applications without our knowledge. Like that's just not going to be happening. So let's not go ahead and add in permissions. Next thing we'll be doing is actually working with the look and feel. Now this one I personally like to call decorations. So decorations.lua. Inside here, you'll go get this entire look and feel section and paste that inside of there. So let's go ahead and do that. Now for animations, if you want, you can put them inside of the same file, okay? Or you can split up animations and decorations. And because the decorations, like animations kind of come in decorations, you know what? Let's just put them inside of the same context because it comes under look and feel anyway, according to Hyprland by default. So you might as well just go ahead and do that. No worries there, okay? Now we have 5 files here. We've included only 4, so we'll include the other one as well. Require, this one's going to be modules.env. Wait, not env, but actually decorations. Decorations. Yes, you're gonna have to write the file to get our changes back. Now, let's go ahead and actually start configuring a bit of the style, okay? So for gaps in, this one, let's set it to be a bit more because we just need that. So something like 8 would work. Border size, you want to reduce that to a 1. And for the active border color, we're going to be using not this stuff. Okay, instead of using a gradient, we will be doing something a little bit different. You know what? We'll just leave the colors for now. Any changes that we're going to want to make, hold on a sec. Something's going on. Where's that? Okay, so it says expected to close at line 6 near the parenthesis. Where is that? Here, something seems to be up. Okay, hold on. Let's go and undo the work. Okay, there you go. Get rid of this part. Yes, the bracket was missing. And now it should work. Okay. So the colors we're going to mess around with later. Let's just keep this as it is. As for the decoration, like these settings, that we're going to change. So rounding, you can change that to something like 20. Rounding power, you can set that to something like 15. And so you get these kinds of rounded windows. If you do not want that, you can actually just set the rounding to something like 2 so that it's more of a circle kind of vibe. You can actually get to know what kind of rounding you want by going over to, let's see, it's not in basics, but it'll be somewhere here. Yes, in variables. So basically here, the rounding and rounding power. For the rounding, that's going to be rounded corners radius in layout pixels. So 20 pixels of rounding in our case. And then rounding power is the curve used for rounding corners. So larger is smoother. 2 is a circle, 4 squircle, and 1 is a triangular corner. So if we're going for a cyberpunk aesthetic, then most likely we'd go with something like 1, which gives us a corner that's very sharp. If not, if we want something smoother, we can go with something like a 7. And yeah, that looks pretty good for now. So we'll actually keep that as is. Active and inactive opacity. Ideally, you want to keep this the same. Otherwise, maximum, you're going to want to change this to something like 0.8 for the inactive opacity, okay? As for active opacity, for this, you do not want to actually lower it too much because then it actually becomes hard to see the content of the windows. Like let's just say I reduce it to 0.5. You can barely see the window, although you can really see the wallpaper. Okay, that is not what you want. Something like a 0.8 or 0.9, you know, a healthy amount while still letting you see the background. That's pretty nice. But for me personally, I'm not going to be using that because it makes it hard for you to see. And it doesn't add that much flair unless you have a good wallpaper anyway, which right now we don't. So for shadows, we want to increase this. Let's say something like 20. Render power will be 3. Okay, there you go. Much better shadows. And the color of the shadow, this one, let's just keep it EE 0A 0A 0A. So a bit of a darker shadow, as you can see. If that's not your thing, you can increase it to 1 2 1 2 1 2. Okay, and that works as well. For the blur, increase the blur size to something like 20, passes to 3 as well. So that, and now you can actually try changing the active opacity, see how it looks. You want there to be a bit of a kind of frosted glass effect. There you go, that beautiful frosted glass effect. If that's something that you're more into, or if you like more acrylic, then just increase the number of passes, and then you'll get the same effect. Vibrancy, we can change that later when we're actually configuring the decorations and animations in more detail. So here, there's actually a new feature that they've added to animations, which is a different type of curve. So you have two curves, okay? You have either Bezier curves that you can use or spring curves. Now, without actually getting into the math of explaining how Bezier curves work and control points, and then when it comes to spring, how exactly a spring curve works with the mass and everything like that, instead of that, just think about it this way, okay? When it comes to Bezier curves, these are the curves that you would use in CSS. So something like ease in, ease out, and then all the other cubic curves that you would use inside of CSS. The ones that are most likely available by default for the transition property. For the spring curve, this is the curve that's used on macOS in order to make things feel a little bit more polished, if you will, if that's the term you want to use. So spring curves, the curves that you have on macOS, Bezier curves that you have in CSS. Okay, this one defines at what, okay, you know what, I'm not even going to try and get into the definition because not only is it complicated, if I do get it wrong, I don't want to teach you wrong things. So just think about it as the way that I've just mentioned, okay? Bezier, CSS curves in transitions, use that, and spring curves used in macOS. Great, so we're done with decorations. Next, let's see, these ones are window rules. For now, we're not going to be configuring any window rules. Most likely there's going to be a section later on, a video on its own because window rules is that vast of a topic. Okay, so we'll cover that later. Great, then this one, hl.config. So these are the layouts. So you want to make a new file, call that layout.lua. Inside of layout.lua, just copy all of this, cut all of this, and then paste it. There you go. That's done. And if you wanted to change layout, you can actually do that here. There is a place for you to change your layout, and it's in decorations, I believe. Okay, layout dwindle. You do not want to do that there. Instead of doing it there, you can actually do that here. hl.config general equals, and inside of this table, you can define layout equals something like dwindle. put a comma there. That way, everything is isolated in one file when it comes to the layout. Okay, as for layout.lua, make sure to include that here. So go ahead, layout modules.layout, and then now here, write the changes. It works. If I open new windows, definitely the window layout. Now, if I change this to something like master and slave, there you go. That works as well. Fantastic. Then after that, if you wanted scrolling, you can try that as well. Now, the thing is, this used to be part of a plugin, but now they've actually made the scrolling as something that you can use without needing a plugin, which is absolutely fantastic because whoever created the scrolling layout is honestly a legend. For now, we will be keeping this as window, okay? Window. You know what? Screw it. Let's just go with scrolling because I just like it that much. Yep, fantastic. There's other binds that you're going to have to implement in order to make scrolling actually usable, which also will be covered in a later video. Next thing we're going to be going with is miscellaneous stuff and then input, windows and workspaces, and we're basically done. So let's do that. Miscellaneous, go here, misc.lua. Side of that, copy and paste this, cut, paste. Of course, default wallpaper, this one I will personally set to 1, or actually 0, because I do not want the anime mascot wallpapers. Save that, disable Hyprland logo if you want, turn that to true, and then next time, most likely, it's not going to show you any wallpaper whatsoever. Now, copy and paste this as well. Modules.misc. Okay, now once we're done with input as well as windows and workspaces, okay, there you go, that just completely gets rid of the background. Let's actually make this false, get something to look at least. After we get putting this inside of their own respective files, we're going to go and get a wallpaper in order to conclude this particular module. So input, yes. Let's go ahead, put down input.lua. Now, if you're used to scrolling on Windows using your trackpad, then you will definitely want to enable natural scroll. Okay, it's a feature that was created by Apple to be used on their laptops way back in the day, and to this day, it's still being used by lots of people. So, you're going to want to put that down as true. If you want gestures, you can configure that here. This one, per device config, we're not going to want that, so that's fine. Let's go here and import our input.lua file as well. Modules.input. And then lastly, we have windows and workspaces. We can just put this down in window rules. So we'll call this window rules.lua. Now you go here, go there, and then copy, actually cut, as well as paste. Cut, paste. Now here, this one is suppress maximize rule. They have actually done it this way. So they basically created a variable, and then they've made it so that you can set the enabled of basically toggle the variable on or off depending on whether you want to suppress maximize events or not. In our case, yes, we do want to suppress maximize events. So instead of putting it into a variable which you can then toggle later on, you can just put it like this, which means that it's just going to be applied no matter what. So that's fine. Then you have Hyprland run window rule. We're not going to be using that. Layer rules return a handle. Again, that also we will not be using. So we can get rid of that. And yeah, we're pretty much it. That's all that we have to do. Then include this window rules.lua file as well. In modules dot window rules. Okay, awesome. Now, last thing you want to do is get the wallpaper. So let's go over to, you know what, for this one, usually I've always picked aesthetics that would be something along the lines of pastel colors and then, really light colored colors. But then let's go for something a bit more vibrant this time. Let's go for a cyberpunk kind of look. So cyberpunk aesthetic wallpapers. Just look up this search term and then see what we get. Okay, this one looks pretty good. It's plenty flashy, so it'll definitely work. Click on download and then just put that in its own location. So let's make one. We'll just call this pictures, wallpapers. But actually, if you want to generate that pictures, wallpapers folder, you have to run xdg user does. xdg user does update. But actually, yeah, this one. So you get all of the different folders that you would not otherwise not have. So let's go ahead, download, and put it inside of pictures, wallpapers now. Download again, click on the button, close connection. Okay, there you go. Now you go inside pictures, And then here, you just put down wallpapers. Side of that, we'll just call this Cyberpunk Cityscape. Cityscape. Then save it. And then we will be using, let's go to auto start. And in here, let's uncomment this part, format, and wayboard. You have that. Then you have Swansea. And you also will want a www daemon, which is going to be our wallpaper. So for the wallpapers, we're going to be using an app called a www. So install that. I'll pass in -- needed so that I don't have to install myself again. It's already up to date, which is fantastic. Now a www img pictures wallpapers, and then you just choose this one. Okay, the daemon is not running, so daemon ampersand is on. Remember that trick I told you earlier? Use that. And then let's try again. Yes, we're going to try again. A www img pictures wallpapers, and the wallpaper. There you go. The wallpaper has been set. Looks pretty good. Now let's close this. We can also close this, and there you go. We've done that. Now we have auto started Wayboard and Swansea, but they're not there yet. We're going to be configuring them later on. As for the wallpaper, we've at least gotten that configured. So we've done something for style. Great. In the next modules, we'll be covering how exactly you can make this look 10 times better with picking out a color scheme. We've gone with Cyberpunk, so we'll be picking something along that aesthetic and much, much more. If you want to learn how to use this Lua syntax in order to actually make more stuff like custom theme switchers, wallpaper switchers, and what else, man? Custom menus using Rafi's, and then Rafi, the launcher, as well as a hell of a lot more, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description, and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program that contains over 10 hours of content that teaches you exactly how you can make something like this on your own as well. Not just copying and pasting dot files, but then actually the step-by-step instructions of what I have shown you in this video right over here. So if you want, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description right now and check out the program. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay rising. Welcome, and this is the kind of bar that we're going to be making inside of this video, okay? As you can see, this is a completely new waybar layout that I have created, something that's inspired by macOS, not macOS, but a MacBook's notch, along with, some elements from previous bars that I've implemented over here. Something completely new, which I have actually never done in a bar before, is using Canva. So if I just open a thing, okay, and then just show you what that looks like, let's go to youtube.com. Let's play some non-copyrighted music because I still want you guys to be able to watch the video. Let's go here and then we'll look for Mortals by Wario, if I'm not wrong. Yes, that is an NCS song, so it's not going to get me monetized. Just have that play. Yeah, see what that looks like. As you can see, it's definitely moving. Now if we forward it a little bit, there you go. You can control exactly how responsive the Canva visualizer is. I'll get to that when we're actually, implementing the actual thing from scratch. But yes, that is so far the features. I've intentionally left it as a bit more of a blank canvas instead of going ahead and adding every single thing I could find and then cramming it into here so that you can experiment on your own. So for right now, we've had a battery and then this thing and then Canva and then workspaces and the clock. This is the clock, by the way, in case you couldn't tell. The 22:16, right now it's 10:16 p.m. So that's the clock. And yeah, let's just begin. So let me first move this over to another folder so that you can start from scratch. It wouldn't exactly be fun if I just showed you what I've already made, right? The whole point is so that you can do it yourself. So let's do that. Let us move .config waybar to .config/waybar.back. Okay, we can do that there. And now let's see, what else are we going to do? So first of all, we're going to make a new folder, call it config waybar. Then we're going to open VS Codium. And as for the other changes that I've made, I've just changed the wallpaper as well as the color scheme. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but anyway, as you can see, this is what we have over here. And then I've just changed my binds a little bit. So mod enter is going to be opening the terminal, and then mod w is going to be closing, and then I've added Rafi-drun, Rafi-show drun over here as well. So let me just show you that quickly right before we jump in. Do not want you to have any confusions as to how this menu suddenly ended up popping up. Okay, let's go to binds.lua. As you can see, so terminal is kitty, that's been like that forever. Then you have file manager, that's tunar, and then menu, Rafi-show drun. This is the main change that I've made. Apart from that, you have the window.close, so that's going to be this, and then this. That's pretty much it. I didn't change anything else except adding this launch.sh bind, which we're going to be doing in just a second anyway. I'll show it to you once again because you need to know this. It's very important. Now let's open VS Codium. so that we can actually start editing. You can also actually end up using your, NeoVim text editor or whichever one that you have, but I will personally be using Waybar because it's graphical, it's easier for beginners to understand, and you can actually see stuff clearly with me working on in the workspace instead of me messing around with cd commands in a terminal. So first thing you want to do is make a launch.sh script. This is going to be the script that you're going to be using in order to reload stuff without having to go into your terminal and then type Waybar ampersand disown every single time. If you remember that ampersand disown trick from the first video, by the way, great job. That is actually something that's very useful. You're going to be using it quite a lot. So right now, let's just kill Waybar because that's not what you're going to be seeing. Ignore this error, by the way. That's not something you need to be concerned with. So let's start. So shebang bin bash. This is basically the line that's going to tell what interpreter to use. So whenever you're going to execute this command, the script actually inside of your shell, okay, the shell needs to know what interpreter it's going to use in order to actually execute the following file. The interpreters you can choose from are, sh, bash, zsh, fish, and then you have Python as well. User bin env or user bin python 3, something like that. If you're using Python, we're going to be using bash, okay? And very simple 2-line script this is, okay? All you have to do here is just pkill Waybar, and then here, Waybar ampersand. That's it. You don't want to put disown here because ampersand alone does the job of, putting the process to the background, especially when it's in a script. No, not especially, but I guess you could say that, right? So let's just write the changes. And let's make sure to go over to this binds config here again. Take a look at this bind. You want to make sure to add this. So you want to copy one of these lines and put that down here. So main mod key and R. You're going to execute command this thing. I've just put down the absolute path to this particular script. And also, please, for the love of God, make sure that you actually chmod plus X. There have been too many times when I have not made the script executable and then I have literally wanted to jump off a bridge because of my script not working. So don't be like me. Just put down chmod plus X launch.sh here. I've since learned from my mistakes and do not end up repeating them. I don't want you to, make them once in your life whatsoever. There you go. Now, if I reload, just press mod key and R, nothing pops up because there is no particular config. That's fine. Let's check whether Waybar itself is working. As you can see, that is working. So very nice. Let's see here. We definitely did execute the script. So pkill Waybar ampersand. Let's try reloading. Okay, now it seems like it's not working. Let's do some quick troubleshooting. This is actually a fantastic opportunity for me to also show you. Right. So the reason why it's not working is because you have to put this inside the scripts folder. The scripts, put that in there. And now if you reload, there you go. You see Waybar. So this is the blank config that you're going to be starting off with. We will transform this into the beauty that you saw earlier in just a second. So hold your horses. Okay. Now, once that's done, let's go over here. You want to make a config.jsonc file. Config.jsonc. And then you want to make a style.css file as well. Make a colors folder because we're going to be using a set of colors. Call that colors.css, or we'll actually be copying it over. You can copy mine as well. I'll show you how to do that later. But for now, this is what we have. So make sure to keep your browser handy because we're going to be using it quite a lot, especially when it comes to the wiki of Waybar. Let's go to github.com/Alexei's Waybar wiki. So you want to go here, and first thing you want to do is click on configuration, scroll down, and then you will find a minimal config at the end of this place. Okay, the minimal config. Let's copy this and then paste the minimal config over here. You want to get rid of all the sway stuff because that's something you're not going to be using. Okay, there you go. And then let's see. This one, let's just format so it becomes easier to read. Control-Shift-I to format on VS Code, by the way, or VS Code, whichever you're using. So as for the modules, this is what our module structure is going to look like. Hyprland/workspaces. Hyprland workspaces in the center. And actually, unless you actually put the module definition down over here, it's not going to work properly. So let's just put whichever ones we're going to be adding just in just a second over here so that we don't get any errors. So modules left, that's going to be Pulse Audio and Kava. Hey, let's just put that down here, right? Pulse Audio. And then Kava, we can deal with the errors later. Pulse Audio, Kava, and then module center. So we're going to have a clock module, clock, put a comma, and then after that, we're going to have yet another clock module. This one is going to be clock right. Or you can name it something different if you want to. I'm just going to call it clock and then clock right. And for the modules right, you're going to want a battery, and then that's pretty much it. Just that. That's all we had. If you wanted to add something like a media indicator or a window title, you can do that pretty easily as well. You can check the wiki. You can do that there. But for now, I'll be showing you how to do these ones. The ones that I showed you at the start. Fantastic. Now, we're going to start off with, let's see. Let's do Hyprland workspaces. So we'll go from here. Let's build out module center first. And then we'll go on to modules right and then modules left. Okay, sounds pretty good. Awesome. Now let's do this. let's go over to the wiki, and then you want to find the Hyprland section right over here. Once you find the Hyprland section, just scroll down all the way down. You'll find this persistent workspaces example, okay? You want to copy that, come down here, and then paste it. So what we're going to be doing most of the time, not most of the time, but actually until we get our module definitions, right, is copying and pasting a lot of stuff from the wiki. Or if you are quite, what do you call it? You know, there's a word for it, but whatever it is, if you are very persistent, not persistent, there's definitely a word for it. Steadfast, I don't think that is it. Anyway, if you have lots of free time, you can write all of this by hand, but I'm pretty sure you don't, so I would rather you just copy and paste like I'm doing over here. It's pretty simple too. So, okay, this is what you want to, what you want it to look like, basically. And this is something else that took me, how long? An hour, not an hour, but half an hour to figure out, which is that if you want only 5 workspaces to show up, there's a way to do that. And instead of using the persistent workspaces option over here, you want to get rid of that and then configure it through the monitors.lua file that you have on your, your Hyper folder. So just go in there. Let's go into config hyper modules monitors.lua, and you will notice, okay, I've enabled my secondary monitor, but that's fine. Here, workspaces 1 to 5 are going to be on the main monitor, and then the 6 to 10, that's going to be on the secondary monitor, but that's implied. So if I go to something like the 7th workspace, it's actually not even displaying on my second monitor, but you're not going to be able to see it anyway. That's fine. As you can see, that's what it's showing up over here. Or if you wanted to, okay, let's say I wanted to display workspaces not 1 through 5, but actually 6 through 10 on the secondary monitor. You just go here, change this, and just get rid of that. Make that something like 6. I have to change it anyway, so 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Monitor, you change that to EDP1, like so. So once you change that to EDP1, there you go. I can go to workspace 7, and then it switched to the 7th workspace on my secondary monitor, which is very nice. This is the way that you get persistent workspaces showing, especially a specific number of persistent workspaces. If you want, dynamic workspaces, kind of like something that you would see on GNOME, where, you have that dot and then the pill style indicator over there that only expands to include more and more pills as you have more workspaces, you can do that, and that is done by not having anything here or here. You just want it to be like this. But for now, we're going to be using 5 to replicate the style that you saw earlier, so there's that. And yeah, this is what you're supposed to use. Very nice. You can get rid of the active and the default ones, and then for the format icons, you can do this. Change that to 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. Here, format, just make sure to change that to icon. Now you will see that it is absolutely nothingness, but that's fine. We're going to change that a bit later on, so it's not really something for you to worry about right now. We have Hyprland workspaces done. Let's do it for the clock. So for the clock format, we want this. So percent, it's going to be %h. Whoops, you want to go here and then just make sure to put down %h and then all the way here. Get rid of that. So now you should just be seeing 22, which is good. Awesome. Yes, that's exactly what you want to see. Now you want to copy this, paste that down, clock hashtag right. So that puts another thing, and then this is going to be %m. So now 2226, just to show you, if I run date, okay, there you go. You see this, 10. Okay, good. Now what else do we need? So we have clock, that's done. So Hyprland workspaces, and then you have clock, and then let's say you have battery as well. So for the battery, that's going to be pretty simple to implement. You go over here, and then you look for battery in this wiki section over here. Scroll down, and you will find a minimal section. So you copy this minimal section, including the custom icon set, depending on state. If you want, you can go for a more minimal, even more minimal option with the first one here, but you ideally want the config that has format icons. Inside of this particular object, you have keys for default and charging, the different icons for that. So you want to use that. Oh, let's do that. Put that down here, format, and there you go. This is what you see. Now, by default, you're going to be seeing square boxes or then literally nothing inside of there because by default, your editor is not using any nerd font. So the way to fix that, okay, by default, let me show you what that looks like. By default, it'll look like this. Oh, it's supposed to look not this good. Okay, I want to get rid of this. Hold on a sec. There you go. Hit enter. Yes, you will see boxes like this. Not what you want, right? You want to instead use a nerd font. Nerd font is a patched font which basically has icons built into it. No need to dig deep into how exactly the font is patched and whatnot. Perhaps I'll make a different video on that if you nerds are curious about it. But then is nerd font mono proper. Put this down. Now, there's different variants of a nerd font, okay? You have the regular nerd font, you have the monospaced version of the nerd font, as in the mono variant, and then you have the proper variant. So depending on the context that you're using it in, let's say you're using it in terms of this font, right? This JetBrains mono nerd font proper, you're using in a context where there are other fonts, other sans serif fonts. So a sans serif font can basically be thought of as a UI font. So you see this one over here, this is using Advaita Sans, which is a sans serif font, okay? So in such context, you want the spacing to be accurate and not exactly shifted by 2 or 3 pixels to the left or right, which is why you're going to be using proper in these contexts, in proportional context, as you would say. Just use that and you will be good. Now let's see for battery. Okay, that seems to be a duplicate. So get rid of the duplicate key. And if you definitely want to get rid of this bat thing, get rid of the bat. And now you should see that that's what it looks like. Very good. I want to shift the icon to the left instead of having the icon all the way to the right. So get rid of that, paste the icon here, and get rid of this space. And there you go, that's what it's supposed to look like. We will fix the styling in just a second. Let's get the modules done, right? So battery done, module center done. Now pulse audio and Kava, that's all that we have left. So let's do that as well. I want to go here, look for pulse audio. Where's that? Pulse audio. Go here, again, copy the minimal config, copy this, and paste it somewhere here. After the battery, you want to paste this down. Get rid of the ALSA output PCI whatever crap, because that'll make your module look like crap, basically. You don't want that. Reload. Okay, you should see that's what it looks like. So very good. Again, shift the icon. Shift the icon here. Good to do. Now, again, you want to icon. So there seems to be a Bluetooth icon as well for some reason. Okay, whatever that is. No need. You can just copy and paste like so. Bluetooth, volume percent. Okay, that works if you reload. Yes, now the overlap, we'll get to that. As for the icons themselves, let's go over to nerdfonts.com. And by the way, if you don't have the font installed, the JetBrains Mono Nerd font, you can just -s. I think it's called TTF JetBrains Mono Nerd. Pretty sure that's what it's called. Let's see. Okay, that's exactly what it's called. So install this font and then you will have access to the JetBrains Mono Nerd font. Another font we will be using is iosevka, by the way. So just look for TTF iosevka. Should be able to find it inside of the repos without having to manually install. TTF iosevka nerd. If you want, you can get the term variant as well, but I'm not using that. So just get TTF iosevka nerd. That's the font we'll be using. As for the nerd fonts, let's go here and look for volume. So you find volume, and now here you want to go for the material design icons. Find medium, put that down here, and then find high. Then put that down here as well. That basically gives your icons a very good look, like that. You have to make sure sometimes, okay, not all the time, that material symbols are installed, but if you have the nerd font alone, that's good enough. Every nerd font comes with these icons built in, so nothing to worry about that. If you wanted to change the icons for the rest of the stuff you're seeing over here, you can do that. But for now, we're done with Pulse Audio. Let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is going to be Kava. Kava 2 is very simple to configure. And here's another thing you need to remember. For making Kava work, you're going to have to install Waybar Kava Git, or just Waybar Kava. Now, if you do not install Waybar Kava and just install regular Waybar, well, it's not going to work. Okay, I tried. It doesn't work because it's not built with Kava support. So you need to compile Waybar Kava from scratch so that you actually have Kava capability, and then so that it doesn't complain in the terminal that there's no such thing as Kava. Once that's done, let's go here, look for Kava. Front end, you don't have to worry about the front end. Just find this code, copy, and then paste. You'll get the thing that you're seeing there. Now, let's paste that here. Good to do. I'm using the Vim extension, by the way. As you can see, Vim supremacy be like. Very impressed. And yeah, that's what it looks like. Let's play some music. Let's go over to youtube.com. Let's find some NCS music, see how it looks like. NCS. Now let's find some random song. This one. Okay, you will notice it blows up immediately and then starts doing all sorts of stuff that you do not want it to. Okay, but that is not what you want it to be like. We'll fix that. Okay, awesome. For now, we have all of our config implemented. So battery done, module center done, modules left done. Good. Now is the part where things start getting extremely fun because we are going to start styling. Okay? Now, you remember this colors folder that we made not too long ago, probably something like what, 15, 20 minutes ago? We're going to be filling that with some colors. So if I show you, this is what we're going to do. Okay, it's actually, never mind. Okay, screw it. Well, okay, there you go. Now let's go over to github.com, more heads, Dropbox. So if you go here, you will notice that there is a screenshot over here with all of the different colors that you can use for the Dropbox color palette. So you have BG 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then whatever that you have here. Okay, now the same thing most likely is going to be there for Dropbox material as well. So if you go to Sane Heat, and then you have Dropbox material, you should be able to find a similar kind of screenshot. If you don't, then, well, that's fine. You just need, okay, there it is. There you go. Material dark hard, medium, and then soft. You have mix, and then you have original. That's not what you want. You want the hard one. So there you go. You have the different colors that are going to be used inside of the material color scheme, Dropbox material color scheme. So what I have already done here is this. Let me just copy over from my main user, home user 0, config, waybar, colors, custom, Dropbox, material.css. And if you're wondering why this file actually exists, by the way, it's part of my custom theme switcher that I teach you how to make inside of my program. So if you want to learn how to do that and not just have a single color scheme, but a plethora of different ones, I've made like 8. And I suppose we are finally back after that little power outage. I have to close and reopen the stream, so I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So as I was saying, if you want to learn how to make custom theme switchers like the one that I show you inside of my videos, okay, and wallpaper switchers and a hell of a lot more, you can click the first link in the description and check out the program. I teach you how to do that in there. Let's copy the Dropbox material.css to colors, whatever that is, colors. Just paste it in there, and then you should see something that looks like this. So at define color, instead of hard coding the colors in there, which is going to make things very hard for you later on, okay, all you're doing here is defining a bunch of variables and then using those variables inside of your code. Pretty simple, basic programming stuff. Awesome. So I have done that for BG0 to BG4, gray 0 to gray 2, and then FG to purple. You can use these colors as a reference and then make the file for yourself. You can do them for other color schemes as well. And once you do them for other color schemes, you need to know how to switch between them, which my program helps you out with. So you can check that out if you want to. Okay, so for style.css, let's see here. You want to add import. Add import, Dropbox, not URL. You do not want the URL in this case. So that's just going to be Dropbox colors / Dropbox material.css. So we start off with this, okay? Now, before you even do anything, in my 4 years of writing Hyprland, I have finally figured out that you do not start to make waybar themes until you have used all unset, okay? You only start to make a theme when you have done all unset, because if you don't, okay, every single padding value, every single margin value is going to be mixed up, okay? There is a certain amount that comes by default, as you're seeing over here, right? The font comes by default, and then you have the spacing and the padding and the margin and the border radius, all of that stuff, it comes by default. You want to override said defaults and put your own ones in there. You don't want to use the default ones. And unless you use all unset, you will not be successfully able to do that. So make sure to put down all unset over there. Let's also change the font family to a different font, which is Iosefka Nerd font. Propo. And we'll just add in something like monospace, because that's the backbone of this particular bar. If you reload, there you go. There's no background color. There's literally nothing. Every single variable that could be set has been unset. So this is what you're seeing over here. A fantastic starting ground for us to work with. Now, next thing we're going to be using is window waybar. So we're going to be coloring the background of the bar. This is going to be a beautiful background color of @BG0. Then you have a color of $, not $, this is not SCSS, but FG. Then you have border radius. We're going to be using something like 0, 0, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. Reload, and then you should see this is what it looks like. Now, as for the bar itself, you're going to want to introduce width. So width, let's just make that 1000. That's the value that I used at the start. And there you go. It's already starting to look like the bar that we know and love. But hold on, something doesn't feel quite right. Where are the freaking workspaces? You see none of the workspaces because they have not been given padding yet. That's fine. We'll get to that. Which is actually the very next thing we're going to be dealing with, the workspaces. So workspaces. In here, you will change min width. Min width, you will make that 100 pixels. Okay. Then font size. This one's very important and a trick that I learned just today. Okay. Font size, you change to 0.4 rem. and padding 2 pixels, 4 pixels. This is top and bottom, and then you have left and right. Top, bottom, 2 pixels, left, right, 4 pixels. And then you have margin, that's going to be 11 pixels on the top and bottom, 0 on the left and right. And border radius, this bad boy is going to be 99 pixels. And now if I reload, this is what you're starting to see, okay? Pretty much. Just with that code alone, a lot of the space has been created, and you're able to see the layout of the bar that we had before. So let's move on. So workspaces, then you need button, workspaces button. Now here, you will change the background color to $BG4, actually. And then you have the color, you'll set that to transparent. Okay, then you have padding, 0 on the top and bottom, and then you have 5 pixels or 6 pixels. Let's just say if it's too much, we can change it later. Then border radius, that's gonna be something like 99 pixels. Then margin 0 and then 2 pixels. Then you have min width is going to be 4 pixels. Now let's reload, and then that's what you see. Fantastic. Now let's move on to the active button. Okay, workspaces button.active. This you will make background color blue, background color at blue, then min width 1.8 rem or 1.5, 1.2 rem, that works as well. Font weight, you want to change that to something like 800. Then let's see, transition, you don't want any transitions, just change that to none. You don't want the jumping around animation. Okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. Font weight doesn't really matter when you don't even have a font there, so you can just get rid of that. That's what you see. Now, if you do not have transition and instead you would prefer something like all 200 milliseconds ease in out, just keep in mind that you're going to have a little something that looks like this. Okay, the transition works plenty well, but then as you can see, in the midst of the transition, the actual spacing between the different bar modules in module center changes, so that might be something that you may or may not want. In my case, I want it to not be that way, so I personally am not going to use any transitions. When I don't use any transitions, the switch between one workspace to another is completely seamless. And this is the trick that I figured out just today, okay? Keep this pro tip in mind. What you want to do, whenever you want to get these pill style, modules that you're seeing over here for the workspace, okay, there you want to reduce the font size. I completely came across this by accident because the font was actually too big, so I'm like, let's just try and reduce it and see what happens, okay? And lo and behold, I just ended up discovering the freaking trick and hack of the century. If I increase the font size to something like 0.9 rem, it becomes too fat. You do not want fat. You want thin, okay? You want thin, slender, and sexy looking, which is what this is going to give you. So you can choose your width, your breadth, and your girth, depending on how thick you want the pills to be. You can let them be this much, okay? 0.4 looks pretty good. On my secondary monitor, okay, it's not able to cross for some reason, but anyway, let's just check it out there. Yep, on my secondary monitor also, it looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave it like that. This is actually min width, so if you wanted to change that a bit more, you can make it something like 1.4 rem to really create a distinction between the different buttons. You can do that. And let's see. Yeah, testing on my second monitor as well. The scale there is 1.0 actually. Here it's 1.25. So there's that difference, but doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's good. It works. So there's that. Next thing is going to be the battery. For the battery, you want to change font size to 1 rem. Okay, change that to 1 rem. Okay, that works. Or you can even actually just get rid of this and not even change the font size of the battery, and that works even better because then it matches the font size of this volume icon here. So that's what actually we're going to be doing. Because if we do end up changing the font size of one, we're going to have to do it for the other. Let's see. Let's complete the thing, and then if we end up noticing something that's a bit off, we can tweak it a little bit. Okay. Next, clock. Hashtag clock, and then hash clock, hash right. In here, we will put down margin 0 and then 15 pixels. Font weight is going to be a solid 700. And font size, this one I found to be pretty good, 1.12 rem. 1.12 rem. And that's what gives you this fantastic look over here. Brilliant. Let's move on to modules left and right. So modules left, you will have a very simple margin. Dot modules left, a very simple margin left of 12 pixels, right? That's supposed to be 12, right? 12 pixels. And then you just repeat the same for modules right. Change that like so. Margin right 12 pixels. And then there you go. That's what it's supposed to look like. If you want to reduce padding or margin anywhere, you definitely can. But for now, this looks pretty good, so we're going to leave it as it is. Now for Canva, you want to change margin to 0, 12 pixels, and then font size, you want to change that to 0.7 rem. And then letter spacing, you want to make that 1 pixel. 1 pixel. Okay, fantastic. That's pretty much done. That's all the style that you need in order to make the bar look as fantastic as this. That's literally it. We are actually done with configuring Waybar. Now, if you wanted to make any other additions to this, it would be pretty simple. Okay, you can do that. And there's another thing that I have to show you, which is Ava's thing, right? So let's see, noise reduction. You want to change this to something like 0.17, and that would help. Let's move this to the third workspace. Now here you want to go to youtube.com. Just find something to play. Let's see, let's play Fearless. I'm pretty sure that is also Fearless. NCS, that is also an NCS song. No copyright strike. It's actually pretty hilarious. They're not called no copyright sounds. It's their music from no copyright strike. I'm gonna write that down. Okay, this is what it looks like. Oh, well, okay. You actually have to give it a bit of volume. If I've given max volume like this, that's what it looks like, right? So let's just reduce this. Change these values. Reload. Oh, hold on. Yeah, if I'm not speaking that much, by the way, you cannot hear the audio, but I can. So just speaking over the music is a bit disorienting. So I might just go quiet sometimes. Don't worry about that. I'm still here. Yes, that's it. So you have to change the sensitivity to 0.01, reduce autosense to 0, just turn that shit off, okay? And then noise reduction you change to 0.17 or something like 0.27, and then just mess around with these values, just use these values as a starting point, and then you will notice that you can actually see the stuff that's going on over here. Yes, there you go. Just casually vibing to the music in the middle of a video. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. That's it. That's all you need to do in order to get a Waybar config like this one. In the future modules, we're going to be covering how to configure Authy and then a bunch more stuff. So go ahead, continue on to the next video. I will see you next time. And if you want to learn how to make stuff like this one, how to deal with Hyprland's updated Lua syntax since 0.55, Hyprland is, using Lua for its configuration syntax. Literally all the wiki pages have been updated to use the new Lua syntax. So this is the best time to honestly capitalize on that and then learn from the only person who's teaching it, to be honest. So if you want, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description, learn how to use Lua in order to make stuff like custom theme switchers, wallpaper switchers, and much, much more. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay rising. Mwah. Welcome, and in today's video, we are basically going to be making this kind of Authy menu that you were seeing here. Pretty simple, pretty beautiful with all the animations, and basically the slick aesthetic that we are going for in this particular setup looks pretty good. So let's actually begin making it. First thing that we have to do is just move my old config over so that we can actually start over. Let's do that. So config Authy, and move this to config Authy.back. Now, this is actually pretty useful because in case we need something, instead of having to go to the web every single time, we can just copy it over. But we will get to that in just a moment. So let's just copy the folder or just move it to a backup. And now the script is not working because there is no script over there. Fantastic. Now, first thing you want to do is open your browser. Just use that trick I taught you in the first video. Just open your browser like this. And what you want to do is just go over to this GitHub repo, okay? It's called github.com, ADI1090X, Authy. So just go here and then you will find a place. Okay, basically this is a collection of lots of different Authy menus. Now, instead of making your own Authy theme, which is going to basically take forever, I would rather you get results right now. That's what's important to me, that you actually end up getting results right this moment. So just click on the previews over here. You will find quite a lot of different themes that you can choose from. The one that you saw at the start of this video just 2 minutes ago was this one, the style 4, I believe. If it's not style 4, it's actually, no, style 15. The style 15 is the one we're going to be using that comes under type 2. So let's actually get that installed and up and running. So you want to go over to basically this part is click on code and then clone this button, okay? Click on copy URL to clipboard, and then you're going to clone this GitHub repo to your desktop. So let's remove the folder that I have already over here so we can reclone it. rm-rf, so just get rid of the folder. Now you want to git clone, https://github.com, ADI1090X, Rafi, you want to clone with -- depth equals 1, so that you're basically getting only the current commit and then not every single commit that has been done before. So 123 commits, that's not what you want. You only want the stuff that you're saying right here in this particular commit. So you're going to do that, just clone it. And once you clone it, it'll show you that the size is actually much lesser than if you clone the entire history, which is good. So cd into Rafi. Once you cd in there, you will see this stuff, okay? So the files that we are interested in are going to be inside of files and then launchers, okay? So we need colors that we're going to import in just a second. So colors, and inside of launchers, if I just run the tree command is a command you can install that lets you basically see the directory structure of a particular folder. So this is what we're seeing here, right? So you have applets, then bin, you have all this sort of stuff. And then inside of here, okay, inside of launchers, this is where we have type 2 and all of the stuff that's associated with it. If you want the same kind of config that I showed you at the start, just make sure to go with type 2. Otherwise, if you want something completely different, then just make sure to go over here, find the particular type, and then follow the same steps, but then model it to the type that you are currently going to be using. So let's do that. For my type 2, you just have to make a folder, okay? Let's go ahead and make a folder.config Rafi. Folder is there. Now what you want to do here is just copy over cd launchers. Once you're in here, you want to copy home/Rafi files, launchers, and then you have type 2. You just want to copy the entire directory over to .config Rafi. Make sure to pass in -r so it actually copies the folder over as well. And now if I ls.config Rafi, you will see that there's type 2 there. So let's actually go over there. Let's go to .config Rafi, and in here, go to type 2. And now you will see that we have all the files. Fantastic. Now this is the part where we're going to have to make a keybind inside of our Hyprland config file. So let's go do that. So open your binds.lua file actually now. So go to modules and open binds.lua. Once you are in here, just go over to this menu part, okay? If you have not changed the way that it was before, okay, it should say menu over here. You want to go here and then change menu to execute this particular script. Because you're using execcmd, there's no need to pass in bash over here. That's just going to do it for you anyway. So just make sure to execute /config Rafi type2 launcher.sh. And if you do that, well, you get this. Now there's still a couple of other things that we have to configure, like window rules, which we will get to once we have actually finished configuring the launcher itself. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now let's see. You want to go into shared first of all. So you want to go into shared, and then if you go to colors.rossi, you will find that there is a colors folder that we're going to have to use. So right now, this is going to be inside of type 2. Type 2 colors, in our case, it's going to be roughbox material.rossi. Okay, now that's that. Let's ls. Here, there's nothing. There should actually be a colors folder, so let's make that indicator colors. Okay, now you have colors. Now you want to cp it over. You want to copy the colors over. So go to Rafi, then you have, let's see, Rafi files, launchers, not files, but pretty sure you have colors, and inside there you have roughbox.rossi. Just take this and then copy it over to colors. Now, if I ls colors, you should see that there's roughbox.rossi. I want to move it over, so colors/roughbox.rossi, move over to colors/roughbox material.rossi. Once you move it like that, just go over to that file, and then you have to edit the colors. So let's do that. Now, the colors I have gotten from this particular file, okay? From customizing Wayboard in the previous video, I have made a colors file for, what do you call it? Wayboard. And that one is going to be the reference, which we're going to be using in order to theme this particular launcher that we're seeing here. Let's go to config Wayboard colors and roughboxmaterial.css. This is what you're seeing here, right? So background color, you change that accordingly. So this you change to 1D2021, and background alt is going to be BG1, so 282828, 282828. You can configure it to be a different color if you so chose, but for now this is what works, and so I'm going to be using that. D4 BE98 for selected. Selected, let's just make it aqua, so 89B482, 89B482, and then you have active. Active is going to be blue, so 7DA EA3, and then you have urgent, which is going to be red, so EA6962. And this FF, by the way, this is basically RGBA syntax, okay? So you have two different ways in which you can define hex colors. You have RGB. Okay, no, it's actually a bit different, but basically this value over here, FF, denotes the transparency. This is not RGB, by the way. This is the hex format. But anyway, this FF denotes the transparency. So you have 00, which is the absolute, basically fully transparent, and then you have FF, which is fully opaque. So if you were to choose anything less than this, it is going to basically be partially transparent, translucent, if you will. So we want every single color to be opaque. No transparency business going on over here. So we're going to do that. Let's see here. Okay, that's still going to be an issue because we have not configured the script yet. So let's go there. Now here, you want to change this to config Rofi type 2 style 15. Okay, and in this command, you want to run pkill Rofi. And if that fails, then you just run Rofi like so. Okay, now you write changes. And then finally, you see this popping up, which is very good. Now, seems like there's a little bit of a change that we're going to have to make. So active seems to be that we have chosen 70AEF3. Okay, got it. So let's just switch these two colors around. For selected, let's make sure to go with 70AEF3. See what happens. Okay, the color changes. Then for active, we can just go for something like 89B482. This is the way that it was supposed to be. Okay, and perfect. That's done. So we're halfway there. We just have to move this to the bottom and then round out the corners and then perhaps add a border, and then we're going to be done. So let's do that. So let's open style15.rasi, and when you go here, you're going to have to change like 3 or 4 values. That's pretty much it. Depending on whether you want it to come from the top or the bottom, you have to change center to either north or south. Changing it to north looks like this, but because the animations are configured to, for it to show up from the bottom, it looks a bit odd, sliding all the way to the top. So you can change the animation in just a sec. I'll show you how to do that. But for now, we want it to actually be coming from the bottom. So let's change north to south, change north to south. And then when you do that, there you go. That's basically our launcher completely done in 7 minutes. That's all it took. And if you wanted to change a bit more of what you're seeing over here, you just have to do that. Pretty simple. The border, let's add 1 px of border. So top, right, bottom, you want 0. And then left is going to be 1 pixel. So you have a border, selected color. That is good, but you want this to be actually background alt. That way, the border is actually pretty subtle. Now you have to change the border radius. So let's go to border radius, and then you see the first part here. Just go here, and then you change that. So again, top is going to be how much? Top, right, bottom, left. So right is going to be, let's say 10 pixels. So top, yep. Okay, so top, nothing, right. Let's just try this out. Top, right, bottom, and then left, right? So you put that here. Now, if you check that out, okay, it seems to have done it this way, which is not what you want. Actually, it should look something like this. 10 pixels, 10 pixels, and this should be 0, 0. Up, up, up. Okay. Now, okay, seems like the rounding is still not working. It was just working a second ago. This is why having that older thing is actually pretty useful. It's not working. You can just change it in a second, in a jiffy. That's no problem. Okay, yeah, this does it for those two. I actually wanted to do is for the top. Does that work? Okay, well, it does it here and then not here. So let's just check the old file and see what's going on over there. Okay, so config Rofi.back, actually, Rofi.back, type to your style 15, you check border radius. Yes, this is what it's supposed to look like. Ah, yes, you apply it to the main window and not just to the main box. That's what we were doing wrong. So let's go and fix that. Go here. So border radius for the main box is supposed to be a little bit different. So we want this to be, let's see, let's get rid of this. I can just copy and paste the lines. So for the main window, you want border radius to be this. Okay, 10 pixels. 10 pixels is 0, 0. And then for the main box, you just want that to be completely 0. You don't want to be touching that. Okay, now you get rid of that. And if you reload, there you go. That's all you have to do in order to get this Rofi menu. There's still one change that we have to make, which is going to be for the font. Okay, there is a way to make the font rendering 10 times better, which we're going to do just now. So you want to go into shared, and then inside of shared, go to fonts.rossi, and then to make the font rendering look 10 times better than it is right now, and just make it a bit more legible and then pleasing to the eye, you want to change this to nerd font proper. Remember that trick, as well as changing the font weight to a medium. When you change it to 11, there you go. Looks 10 times better as it did at the beginning of the video. That's pretty much our Rofi config done. Last thing to configure is going to be our window rules. So let's go ahead and do that. That would look a little something like this. Let's go over to config, hyper modules, window rules.lua. This is actually going to be a layer rule. Okay. And now this is our layer rule that we have. So the name is going to be Rafi dropdown. You don't even have to give it a name. Okay, it's just going to be an anonymous layer rule in that case. Nothing that really matters too much, but you can have a name if you want to. I've just chosen a name for it. Call it Rafi dropdown. Actually, it's called pop up because it's popping up instead of dropping down, but it is what it is. Then you're going to match with the namespace. How exactly did you get to know the namespace of a particular layer? Well, you can sleep to and hyperctl layers. You don't even have to sleep for 2 seconds, sleep for 1 second, run hyperctl layers, and then immediately open the layer, and then you will see that the namespace on my current monitor, okay, the namespace is going to be Rafi. Exactly what we're looking for, so we match by namespace, and then we add in the rest of the layer rules that we want to. So animation, that's going to be slide bottom, so it actually slides up from the bottom. You can customize the border radius of this one as well, which we will do in just a second. Seems a little bit odd for everything else having such a, refined border radius. This one is not, so we can fix that. But yeah, that one, and then you have dim around, which is true. So dim around. This variable basically controls whether the background and other stuff that's around the particular layer is dimmed or not. Now, because this is popping up from the bottom, okay, you actually want to be able to tell when it's open and when it's not. So I have added, personally, I have added dim around and then set that to be true, so that you can just differentiate between when the layer is open and when it's not. Okay, awesome. Now, one more thing. Let's just go over to style15.rossi, and then this case, you want to add in a border radius to the selected item. So list view, elements, element, okay, text, icon, selected normal, okay, selected. This case, let's just try changing the background color for a second. Foreground, let's just make it something like selected. That way it should completely disappear. Okay, that's it. That's what we're working with. If you want to leave this as a bit of an accent, you actually can, which not that bad of an idea. So let's do that. And you can just add a border radius. So a border radius, let's just make this something like, yeah, just 10 pixels. 10 pixels, and yep, there you go. Perfect. This is exactly what it is supposed to look like. Okay, looks awesome. And that is how you can configure Rafi in order to look as beautiful as it does, in order to match the rest of the setup. If you want to learn how to use the Lua syntax in order to configure Hyprland even further than this, implement custom theme switchers, wallpaper switchers, and much, much more, along with tips and tricks on how you can make Rafi look like this, along with a bunch of other applications, I cover it inside of Hyper Accelerator. So if you want, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description right now and check out the program. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay rising. Today, we are going to be making this particular notification center that you're seeing right over here, okay? Can play the music, and then it works. I have do not disturb switches that I can turn on. Now, if I were to show you an example of a notification, I would look something like this, okay? Now, these two are just ones that are sent through notify send. I will show you how to do that in just a second. This is what they look like, okay? There you go. Now, if I wanted to collapse them and close them, use these buttons. Now, let's open our browser, and then let's go to this website, okay? The web notifications test website over here. Now, let's just authorize, allow. And if we show notifications, this is what that looks like. This is the, one with the action as well as an image and a title and then a subtitle, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you look at it inside of the pane, the actual control center pane, then this is what you're going to see. So you see the application name, again, collapse, as well as close all notifications. Let's do that, and let's actually get started with implementing this. So it's pretty easy. First, we're going to back up just as we do as always, and move config sway nc to .config sway nc.back. If you haven't installed sway nc, you install it using a-s sway nc. You can even use pacman because it's in the official repos. Nothing to worry about there. Okay, so you get that, and then once you're done, you want to go over to this site. So github.com, Eric, Ryder, I'm pretty sure. Yep, Sway Notification Center. So just go to this link over here. You can just look up Sway NC GitHub on your favorite search engine, and you'll still find it. Once you do, okay, just scroll down, and you will find a section where you can check out a different config that's already been made. We are going to be adapting this config to work for our particular use case, because unless we do that, it's going to take way too long for me to explain how exactly to make a notification center on your own, right? It's going to take way too long, probably something like 4 to 5 hours if I were to cover every single option and including making it look good. Now, neither of us have that kind of time, especially in one video. So what we're going to do is adapt one of these configs to our own liking. The one that I've chosen is actually a pretty recent one, okay, all the way at the bottom right over here. So if I search for it, be able to find, yep, it's this one. Okay, there you go. So you can just get the .files link over here. Let me just check whether it's this one or it's a completely different one. Okay, no, most likely it is that one itself. Just to check. Okay, yeah, no, it's actually this one. Okay, now for this particular one, if you're going to be following along what I'm doing, just make sure to click on this .files link by seepmint or whatever you call this. Now, here you want to clone this config as we have done many times before. So you want to git clone this particular folder. Let me just remove it in case it already exists. Okay, you want to clone this with a depth of 1. So dash dash depth equals 1. When you clone it, okay, you want to go inside the .config folder, find sway&c, and then copy that over to your actual .config directory. So we're going to do that once this is done. And once you actually do copy it over, there's some things you're going to have to modify so that it fits with our particular configuration. So here, if you look, you will find power profile, caffeine, mic toggle, and themes W, okay? These ones we're not going to be using because they require scripts, which we have to rip from this particular .file setup and then put inside of our own, okay? That you can do. It's pretty simple to do. So if you want, you can set that up. But to get this kind of config that you're seeing here, we're not going to be using those at all. So there's no buttons grid. There's nothing else that we're using except just the Empress module, this one, the do not disturb, as well as the actual notifications themselves. Is it done? Almost done. And in case you wanted to go with a different kind of a config, okay, you can do that. But just know that the instructions for actually making it look the way that I have over here, that's going to be different, right? There's that. Okay, it's done. Now let's go to .files. In here, you're going to want to go to .config and want to copy sway&c over to .config. So once you do that, you're also going to want to, by the way, add this to your thing. So let me show you. I'll zoom in, go to config, waybar, and scripts. Inside the scripts folder, you want to open launch.sh, and then make sure to add in sway&c as well so that it reloads whenever you press the mod key as well as R. So if I reload this, okay, right now the bind is not going to, well, it's going to pull this up because the config has been changed, right? But we're going to get to that in a second. Just make sure to update the script to include sway&c reloading as well, like so. And another thing is setting up the window rules. So let's go to config hyper modules window rules.lua. Now on this part, you want to just go over to a layer rule. You want to make a new layer rule and then add in animation slide top if you want the same kind of animation that you saw over here. Otherwise, you can add in slide right so that it ends up sliding in from the right. It will reload and now it slides in from the right. That's what it looks like. If you wanted to slide from any different direction, let's say you wanted a notification center from the left side or maybe even the bottom, you just have to change slide and then use a particular direction that you want to. In my case, that's going to be slide top, so I'm going to leave that as is. Okay, awesome. Now let's open using VS Codium our config. This is what it looks like, okay? Inside of colors, you have colors.css and then dark and light. I'm going to copy this from the existing thing that I had. Make sure to take a screenshot and then just paste it into any AI and then ask you to give you the copy pastable version of that. It'll be much easier to use instead of you actually having to type out the entire file by hand. Or perhaps if you wanted to change the colors yourself, you could do that. So there's that. Let's actually get started with configuring. So inside of config.json, you want to turn off fit to screen. So fit to screen false, control and center width, and then control center height. Change that, control center height. I want to change that to something like 600. Now, if you reload, you should find that, there you go. That's exactly what you want, okay? Now, we're just going to have to do a couple more things. Position next, that's going to be center, and then reload. You should find that, okay, perfect. So it's already starting to come together, which is pretty fantastic. So let's continue. Let's go on with getting more stuff done. Buttons grid, last time we did not have that, so we're going to get rid of that. Reload, and no errors so far. Everything works. But great, now let's go to style.css and begin changing the colors and everything else that we have to. So you put that down here. Format. And here's another thing that I've noticed, okay? Whenever, whether it comes to a waybar theme or wlogout or even sway&c, you want to make sure that your font family and font weight, they all come after all unset, okay? Otherwise, the font is just not going to work properly, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Let's change the font to JetBrains Mono Nerd font. And because we are going for a sans serif aesthetic, let's use Geist, which is our UI font. Reload, and you will see, there you go. The nerd font is currently being used, and the font weight has been changed to reflect the 700 that you're seeing here. Okay, now we have to change the colors. Changing colors is pretty simple. You want to get rid of dark and light. Get rid of these two because we will not be using that. Colors.css, this is a symlink to one of them. That's all right. We don't need the symlink either. Okay, now here, let's just copy over this thing. So config sway and c dot back. Now in there, you want to copy over colors, the entire folder, or just Grapbox material over to .config sway and c. Copy it, paste it there. Okay, just move this over to colors. Now, if you reload, you will notice that the colors are definitely not working because you need to import the right file. So let's do that. Colors, Grapbox material.css, reload, and what do you know? That's pretty much it. Okay, is that it? Is that it? Let's just check. Okay, notifications all working. And then if we go over to the same website to test our notifications, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it. There's nothing else that you have to do. Okay, the color scheme, everything's working perfectly. And then, yeah, that's the first time a tutorial in this kind of series, this kind of long form series has been so short, but that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do in order to get a notification center that works just like the one that you're seeing here. Now we can improve it a little bit by adding something like a different border color, as well as pushing this one up to the top. So let's do that so that it matches with the rest of the aesthetic that we have got going on. So let's just go to margin, especially for the notification, not notification, but actually widgets, not even widgets. What's that called? Anyway, let's find it somewhere here. Control center, there you go. Move the margin. And now, okay, it sticks to the top. Now, as for the border radius, you just want to copy this line, paste that here, paste that there, and then 0, 0. So top and right is going to be no margin. Then the border radius margin is going to be used for the rest. So you get that little drop down effect. If you want to, you can use a border as well. So that would be something like border 1px, 1px. Top, right. So top is actually 0. Top, right, bottom, and then left is going to be like that. Then solid. And then the color, you can, let's just put it down as red for now. See whether it works. Okay, that does not work. Seems like we're going to have to change border color separately. Okay, hold on. Let's try it this way, right? We'll just add in a 1 pixel solid border, change border color like so. Border color, let's make it at red. Reload. See if that works. Okay, that definitely works. Now you want to try doing the same thing, except just changing the border sizes. See if that works. Okay, that's the part where it fails. Well, now there's no need to worry about that. Let's just pass in the unit, see if that makes it better. It does not. Okay, let's change this. Does that work? Okay, it doesn't. In which case, we are going to have to do this instead. So border 1 pixel, solid. Make sure to get the border working first. Okay, it does. Then you just change border top to 0 pixels, or you change the color itself. There you go. That's exactly what we were looking for. But there is one thing that you'll notice, okay? Because it does not appear from below the waybar window, the border looks a little bit weird. So we're actually not going to be using the border. That's it. This really did just happen to be a config that didn't take quite long to configure at all. That's it. Our notification center is completely done. If you want to learn how to make stuff like notification centers on your own, as well as use the new Lua syntax in order to make more stuff that you're seeing, okay, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description. That's the program Hyper Accelerator, which will teach you how to make custom theme switchers, wallpaper switchers, and basically a hell of a lot more. Everything that you could want in order to make Hyprland into your very own desktop. So if you want, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description right now and check out the program. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay racing. Today, we're going to be customizing our terminal, making it look as badass and sexy looking as the one that you're seeing right over here, okay? Now, before we do that, I have changed a couple of things, namely the bar. Now, the main change that's been done over here is that we have just simply added a bunch more modules. Okay, by a bunch more, I literally just mean one more, and then just added some more color to it. Adding color to a bar is pretty simple. I've covered that in plenty of other of my videos, but in case you wanted to take a look at how that works, let me just show you. So let's go to config. Where's that? This place, config waybar, go to style.css. Now in here, if I just show you how I have colored the different parts of the bar, it's as follows, okay? So for the Cava, I've just added color orange, color green, color purple, and color yellow. If I were to show you the actual color file itself, it's the same that was there last time, except we're just putting in color over here, right? So let's go over to config waybar colors, rough box material. Okay, now this one's actually not there because I have shifted the colors around. They're in custom rough box material.css along with a bunch of other ones, but we're not going to be using those ones. Okay, basically this exact same file, and then I've just colored in the rest of the bot. So let's begin with the terminal. As always, we're going to back up our original stuff so that we can refer to it later on, and so that I can show you how to set this up from scratch. So let's move config kitty to config kitty.back. There you go. And now let's also move config fish to .config fish.back, fish.back. And then you also want to move config starship.toml in order to get your plain starship prompt back. So config, you want to put that to starship toml.back. Awesome. Now, if I reload, this is what you see, okay? And this is the exact same screen that you are going to see when you switch away from bash to fish. So usually this is our shell, okay? This is what it used to look like. Pretty simple, nothing too complicated, but this is not what we're going to make it look like, okay? This is bash, and it's a different shell compared to what we were using just previously, which is the shell known as a fish shell. So what you want to do when you're at this particular, place in your terminal is basically just type in chsh-s $, and in parentheses which fish. When you do it this way, it's going to ask you for a password, changing shell for user 3, and then you type in your password. It says shell not changed because my shell is already fish. I have just switched temporarily to the bash shell, which is why it gives me this. Then once you change your shell, you log out and you log back in, and this should be the first thing that you see when you open up your terminal. Awesome. And another thing, I've also changed the decoration colors for this. So let's show you hyper modules decorations.lua. Okay, I have simply changed the active and inactive border color. We were going to discuss decoration and animations in a different module, perhaps, okay, perhaps in another video, but then it was looking so hideous to the point where I just had to change it. So please feel free to do the same with your setup as well. If you are using the same Graphbox material color scheme that I am over here, you can just copy these colors. They seem to be working pretty well, pretty minimal. Or if you wanted something like the accent color to be used for the border as well, you can go ahead and do that. That's all we've done. Now, once you are at the fish shell, you're going to want to open your config.fish file. So you want to go to config, fish, config.fish. And in here, you just want to type in set fish greeting. Set fish underscore greeting. Do that, and then once you do that, if you open the terminal again, you're not going to see that pesky message asking you to check out the help for the fish thing all the time. That's great. So now we have done this much. Next thing you want to do is install a little something known as Starship, okay? So open a browser, and then you want to go to Starship prompt. Just look up Starship prompt, and then you will find instructions on how to install it for fish. Now, because I'm using the Brave browser over here, I can just ask Starship prompt fish install, and most likely it is going to show me instructions on how to install it, and you could just do that. So just install Starship right over here, copy that command, and then you paste it. So that's going to be curl-ss starship.rs install.sh, and then you pipe that to sh. So basically taking this install script and then giving it to the sh shell interpreter, just like bash. Sh is another shell interpreter, if you will, okay? And you're just basically giving the script and then executing it. Once you do that, it should install Starship for you. Now for me, it says that it's already there, but let's just go ahead and do it again. There you go. Now let's just type in the password. It's going to install Starship, and then once it's done, you will see Starship latest installed. Now, what you want to do is take this particular command, starship init fish, and then source. You want to take this and put that inside of config, fish, config.fish. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to open config, fish, config.fish, and then in here, at the very end, you want to copy this particular line and then paste that right here. This is basically telling fish to use the Starship prompt. And immediately, this is what you're seeing over here. So we're pretty much halfway there, okay? We're not going to be designing a completely new revolutionary prompt on our own. We're going to be using one which looks pretty freaking good, used by tens of thousands of people, and that comes in the form of the Starship prompt that is used by the end 4 dots. So let's go ahead and check out that particular repo so that we may use those dots, the Starship prompt at least, for ourselves. So let's go over to github.com/end4, or however, let's just call it end4.github. So you want to go here, make sure to go over to .hyperland. And once you do, just click on dots and then click on .config, and then you will find the folders and files of interest, namely fish as well as our starship.toml. So let's just copy our starship.toml because why not? Let's just configure our starship prompt first. The order doesn't really matter. You can do whichever one that you want to first. So you want to go to config starship.toml, starship.toml. Currently the file is empty, so you paste this in. And then as soon as you paste it in, watch what happens. Okay, there you go. Immediately the colors change, which is fantastic. However, okay, we get our prompt. That's pretty good. But there's still other things that we have to configure, like kitty itself, as well as our colors for the particular prompt, as well as fish. So as for fish, let's see if we are missing anything. You want to go over to this particular thing. Okay, now you want to look for config.fish. And no, seems like we are not exactly missing anything because everything on the fish configuration side is already done. Now, what you want to do when it comes to kitty is just make a new config file. So you want to go over to .config, so cd.config, and here you want to make a new file. So config, you want to make kitty here, and okay, the file already exists. Let's see, cd kitty. Okay, it seems like the folder is already there. I want to make a kitty.conf, kitty.conf. I'm pretty sure you can copy it over from Etsy XDG. Let's see, Etsy XDG. Where is that? Kitty. Okay, it's not here. But anyway, you want to copy over the particular file that you would use to configure kitty. So let's look for kitty configuration file. Copy that over. Main things that we're going to want to be changing is the padding. That's for sure. The padding, as well as the font and the colors. That's it. If you change those particular things, you're pretty much good, and then you won't have to do anything else. However, I will show you my personal config that I use on my main machine so that you can get an idea of what the ideal looks like. So let's go over to this. It says Control-Shift-F2 should bring that up. So let's do that. Control-Shift-F2 brings the line, which is good. Now let's go to fonts. This particular size we're going to be changing. So change the size to something like 13. And the font family, you want to change the font family to a nerd font because the prompt we're using, the Starship prompt, is going to be using lots of symbols which are present only in nerd fonts. So we want to use JetBrains Mono Nerd font, Mono in this particular case. So the difference between Mono and any other variant of the JetBrains Mono font basically is that in Mono, every single icon that you see are equally sized. Okay, so if you're displaying icons inside of the terminal, let's say any particular icon from your starship.toml, right? Go to starship.toml, and here, let's just say these symbols, okay? These symbols, they display properly and show themselves to be the right width only if you have this set to mono, okay? They do not exactly spill over into the next cell, which is exactly what you want when it comes to terminal fonts. You want every single character to occupy a fixed width. It's exactly why you used fixed width, otherwise known as monospaced fonts, inside your terminal. So that's what you're doing here. Next thing you want to look for is the padding, window padding width. That you want to change to something like 25. Okay, now if you open, there you go, already starting to look a lot better. Now you want to look for colors, okay, colors. And then once you find colors, let's just go down. Yes, color scheme. So you have background and then the foreground, as well as a lot more different colors that you were seeing somewhere here, the color table, right? So this is the section for the particular colors that you're going to be using. Now, I already have my colors file, which I have gotten by going over here. So let's go over to github.com, saying he, Graphbox material. Okay. The color scheme that I'm using is by this particular guy. Let's just go here, right? Now, he has created an image for us to take our particular colors from. If you see here, you have BG0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and basically lots of other different colors that you can use inside of your particular color scheme or inside of your app's UI, basically. And I have taken these colors and then made them into a kitty theme file. So if I show you it's actually just cat.config kitty.back colors.conf. Okay, I have basically taken everything that you're seeing here and then put that right over here. So all of the colors, this was actually supposed to be the Capuchin theme. So I've just changed the name as well as the author and all the other stuff and basically made it so that the colors, the Capuchin colors have been replaced out with the Graphbox material colors. So all I have to do is just make the folder and then we'll be good. So let me show you how that's done. Go into mkdir.config kitty colors and then nvim config kitty colors. Here, you want to call it colors.conf, or you can call it groveboxmaterial.conf, whatever you want to. Now let's just paste this particular thing in there. If you want to, okay, I will zoom out so that you can copy and paste this particular version into your own file as well. So let's just go, let's see. Okay, let me zoom out sufficiently, see if that works. There you go, this much. Now you can just take a screenshot of this part and then a screenshot of this part, and you can ask any AI that you want to in order to give you the copy pastable version, and then it'll give you one particular file, one huge file that you can copy and paste to get access to the colors. That's good. Now you want to go over to your main kitty file, kitty.conf, and you want to look for the include syntax. That is going to be inside of here. So let's go to config, kitty.back, and you will find include syntax looks like this. So you want to include colors.conf. So let's do that right over here at the very top. You can just include colors/colors.conf. Once you do that and then you open, as you can see, the colors are working fantastically. Okay, all of the colors are displaying properly, which is good. Now, that's it. If you want to get the exact kind of terminal that you saw previously, along with all of the performance things and whatnot, this is what you're supposed to copy, okay? Font family is the same that we chose right over here. Font size is 13. We're disabling ligatures simply because with some fonts, they just don't end up displaying properly. But if you want a ligature, which is basically when, let's say, you have an arrow and then you have like this. So this thing would morph into one arrow symbol if you had ligatures turned on, but right now you don't, and so that feature has been disabled. As well as the audio bell, you definitely want that to be turned off so that whenever you press backspace on an empty prompt, the bell doesn't blow your ears out. Shell integration, so this one is for the blinking cursor. You want to turn that off if you want to. If you want the traditional terminal aesthetic, you want to turn that off because you have a just solid cursor that does not blink. Then cursor shape, that's going to be block. URL style, that's curly. So whenever you have a URL, the underline underneath it, it's not just going to be a solid line, but it's actually going to be curly. Now, the window size, you just do not remember that because you do not want a window spawning in the center of your screen with dimensions that are less than what it's actually supposed to be. And if you turn off this particular option, okay, the window is just going to pop up with the full dimensions that it's supposed to occupy. Otherwise, you can let it be this way. So initial window width and height. Let's say you are using this for your floating terminal. You can use that. In our case, we're not really going to be using that, so it's safe to get rid of it. Cursor blink interval, you also want to set that to 0. Then window padding width, this you want to set to 25. Now, if you are going to take lots of screenshots with your fetch tool, let's say I have NeoFetch, right? NeoFetch, I have that. Now, if I make this floating, and then let's say I do this, you're able to see this ugly scroll bar, which gets in the way of screenshots. In order to turn that off, you just turn off the handle opacity, track, and track hover opacity. You just turn all that to 0, and then you're not going to be able to see the scroll bar anymore, which makes it for a very good screenshot terminal. When you're using your fetch tool and then you want to take a screenshot of it, you don't want to see the scroll bar, so that's what that's for. Then you have background opacity. That, of course, is to make sure that the blur is able to shine through. Then confirm OS window close. Usually, whenever you have an application running inside, it's going to ask you whether you actually want to close the window. So let's say I have NeoVim running, and then it just keeps asking you whether you want to close a particular window. Chances are you're going to have pressed the key button because you want to close the window, so you don't want it bothering you. You can just select yes in this case, or you can just use this particular option to make sure that it doesn't even show you the thing in the first place. Then for performance settings, sync to monitor, so this is basically disabling vsync. Then performance, repaint delay, and input delay. This is reducing, or yeah, this is keeping the input delay to a minimum so that whenever I type stuff on the keyboard, it actually appears pretty instantly, and I don't have to wait with a particular delay. Cursor trail, this is 3. So let's actually just copy over this particular file because it's even more well done anyway. And let's copy config kitty.back, right, actually here, kitty.back. Then here, you want to copy kitty.conf over to the main folder, kitty.conf. Copy that over. Now, this is what you see. Now, notice that the cursor trail is basically the option that allows you to get that cursor shifting effect. So if I close out the terminal, yep, that's what I mean. So you see, when I press, the cursor doesn't just jump immediately from one place to the other. There's actually a trail. So that looks pretty cool, and you can enable that as well. Awesome. Now, the last thing left for us to do is to add some color to the Starship prompt itself. And the way you do that is like this. So let's go open the starship.toml file. Okay, and let's open the file that I had before. Let's go to config, not actually that, but starship.toml.back. Now, if you notice, there is a FG thing over here, okay? Except in front of the FG thing, this FG line over here in style, you're replacing that with the hex code. And you want to do that for every single place that you find FG. If you do that, every single place that you find FG and BG and wherever else you find these numbers, along with a background or foreground or whatever, you will be able to change the color scheme to whatever that you want to. So let me show you for a bunch of them, or we might even end up transforming the entire thing. It's fine. Okay, now let's start with fill. So FG, you want to change that to #7C6, 7C6, and then F64. Do that, and immediately, okay, this one, you don't notice a difference, but let's go on. We'll keep changing it, and eventually it's going to show itself in terms of a change. 7DA EA3. As for 244, that's going to be EA6962. Okay, now is finally when you start seeing color changes take place immediately. And if I type something wrong, okay, here it doesn't quite work because we have to do that in other places as well in order for it to work immediately, right? So yes, I'm missing a hashtag, so of course it's not going to work. There you go, not that. Okay, now you see the red color that is supposed to be there. Now let's just try it for this one last time, and then I will show you the colors that you're supposed to use for the rest of it so that you can copy and paste the same thing. Now for the Git branch, you want to change that to this thing. Bold, FG, 7DA, EA3. Hold on a sec. Let's see what number was there before. 252. So you can just replace the number 252 with this. Yep, there are lots of 252s. You can change 252 with 7DAEA3. Hashtag 7DAEA3. And then let's see what else. See if that helps. Okay, that is definitely helping. So let's go and do that for the rest. Now we have FG235. That line is going to be 1D2021. I want to replace 235. You want to replace that with 1D2021. Replace the background, not changed yet, but we will keep on doing this until we have changed every single color. In 252, 7DAEA3. Once again, 252, hashtag 7DAEA3. Once again, there you go. More and more of the prompt is slowly being transformed to use the colors that we wanted to. Then 252, once again, that's going to be 7DAEA3. 252, 7DA, hash 7DAEA3. You do that. And finally, this particular thing is completely transformed. Awesome. Now we do that for the rest of it. Okay, state, that's all fine. Next time we come across it is going to be a different place. Okay. 255, this directory symbol. There it is. So 255. So let's go down to directory, and then you will find it's supposed to be replaced with 3C3836. So 255. Place that with 8C3. 8C3. Wait, no, it's actually 3C3836. Oh my word. 3C3836. Okay, and then 255 once again, 255, replace with 3C3836. You do that. And yes, lastly, you have to change these colors as well. 7DA, EA3. These are done. Awesome. Let's see if there's anything else. Look for BG. 240. I'm pretty sure I saw 240 somewhere. FG240, that should be replaced with D4BE98. Replace 240 with D4BE98. 98, right? Place it with that, and there you go. That's the exact same prompt that you saw at the beginning of the video. Done. And that's pretty much it. That is how you can make an amazing prompt like this one pretty simply, pretty easily, without pretty much any effort at all. If you want to learn how to make other setups like this one, where I show you the exact step-by-step process of click this button, do this particular action, here's how stuff works, and not just copy and paste dot files. Okay, if you actually want to learn how to make stuff like this yourself, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description right now, and check out Hyper Accelerator. It's a program with over 10 hours of content that teaches you exactly how you can make setups like this one, along with even more features like custom theme switchers and wallpaper switchers, plugins, overview menus, logout menus, literally everything that you could want in order to turn Hyprland into a complete desktop environment. And so, if you want that, you can go ahead, click the first link in the description right now and check out the program. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay rising. Mwah. Now, at this point, we have customized Hyprland and pretty much gotten it to look the way that we wanted to, with the terminal, with Waybar, and with everything else that we could possibly want. Okay, but the only thing left is going to be, when it comes to theming, okay, is going to be your GTK theme, your icon theme, mouse cursor, some font settings that we're going to have to change in order to get the best font rendering, as well as a couple of other things that I'm going to discuss in today's video. So, to get started, we're going to pick a different GTK theme compared to the one that we have here, okay? So right now, the theme that we're using is the, what's this called? This is called Gruffbox Material. So let's go onto the web and we'll look for a Gruffbox Material GTK theme, which we're gonna find as soon as we look for it. So most likely you're gonna find it on pling.com or gnomelook.org. You're gonna find it in these two places. If not, we're just gonna search it up and see what we find. So let's do that right about now. So you want to look for Gruffbox Material GTK theme. Once you look that up, you should find one by this awesome person over here called Fausto Corpsfart. So there's this one, but that's only for the actual Gruffbox color palette. Now let's see if there's a material version as well. Okay, that does not seem to be the case. Let's just try it. Okay, let's see here. There seems to be one for Capuchin, Everforest, Gruffbox, and then material. Let's see whether this is what we're looking for. If not, we can make our own GTK theme, as I have instructed in one of my previous videos. So this material GTK theme, let's zoom out. Okay, this is what it looks like, and this is not quite the same thing we're looking for. Let's see if we can find a different one. Okay, this one, Gruffbox Material GTK. So when you scroll down, this is what you're seeing, right? This works pretty well. Currently supports all this. It seems to be no longer maintained, but that's fine because as of 2025, GTK4 and Labor Whiteout was a thing, so that's not something we're going to have to worry about. So we're going to basically install this particular GTK theme, see if it works. If not, we're going to make one on our own. Okay, so you want to click code and clone this particular repo. CD or just check releases. There are no releases. Okay, now just scroll down. Okay, clone, copy this themes to .themes, copy the icons to icons, and then you can choose whichever thing that you want from NWG look. Okay, so let's just git clone this particular repo. Want to depth equals 1 or depth 1 to only clone the current commit. You don't want the entire commit history because you're not going to be actually developing. Hold on a second, that seems to be a bit odd, but I suppose that's just how big it is. Go to Gruffbox Material GTK. Now in here, okay, we have themes. So inside themes, we have Material Dark and Material Dark High DPI. So you want to copy whatever is inside the themes folder. You want to copy over to .themes. Now, if in case the folder doesn't exist already, you're going to have to make it. So mkdir.config, not .config actually, but .themes. And there you're going to drop this particular GTK theme. So copy whatever's in there to .themes. Okay, -R, of course, cannot forget, gotta make it recursive. And now you will see that there's the option to choose Gruffbox Material Dark. Select that, and then there you go. The font seems to be, not the font, but actually the GTK theme seems to be working pretty well. So let's just apply, hit apply. Now we'll open our file manager, let's say, Nautilus, the file manager. Okay, right now it's partially working because of, okay, let's see. Let's just kill Nautilus. See, make sure it's dead. Now let's try reopening it. Nautilus. Okay, seems like this is as far as we're going to get when it comes to GTK4 theming for this particular theme. Because of its nature of no longer being maintained as of last year, actually, it's been a little bit longer than a year, you do not have proper GTK4 support. But tell you what, I have made 2 videos on the past in how you can make your own GTK theme, so you can go ahead and check that video out. You can pause this one, open that one in another tab. Okay, just make the GTK theme, just follow the instructions I gave you in that video, just make sure you have that particular theme. For this video, it's going to get too long if I show you how to make it again, and I will be repeating myself, which for this one, okay, I do not want to. So we're going to be using this GTK theme for now. The next thing we're going to be using is the icon theme, okay? And also, to cover quickly, we have the font. You can pick whichever font that you want. I installed Geist, and most likely I made you install the same thing too. So if you're using Geist, that's good, awesome. If not, you can pick a different font. Inter is a pretty good font. You can use SF Pro Text as a font, and then you also have Rubik. If you want exceptionally good font rendering, then I really recommend this one font called Rubik, okay? You know what? I might actually just switch to Rubik simply because of the quality of the font that it is. Looks pretty legible even at small sizes. And once you actually turn the settings that are supposed to make your text look much better on, yeah, there's no beating Rubik when it comes to font rendering. Let me show you the package. So that's going to be EASS, TTF Rubik, I'm pretty sure. You're going to find, yeah, TTF Rubik. Or let's actually see whether there's a different package. Just look for Rubik, and you're going to find all the packages related to this font. So Rubik Git, that's not it. Okay, TTF Rubik, and then you have the variable font. That's fine. So you can just install the package from here. Make sure to close NWG look and then restart it. And then once you go over to pick a font, you're going to be able to go to Rubik and then just choose the font from here. Now, just notice that one particular change. We haven't changed anything about the settings, other hinting, anti-aliasing, and RGBA order settings. We haven't changed anything, and the font already looks 10 times better. So I would just recommend you to go with this particular font if you don't have a taste, okay? As in, if you do not have a particular font in mind, just choose this one. So we're going to hit apply. As for color scheme, you want to prefer dark. That's actually what changes the GTK4, theme. Otherwise, if you set it to default, what's going to happen is it's not going to listen to you. So if I open clocks, right now, it's still like that. But if we actually kill GNOME clocks, and then if we restart, reopen clocks, okay, it still seems to be showing this way because of the theme that we've currently selected, okay? It's an option that you can most likely enable inside of the themes files itself, but you want to make sure that this is set to prefer dark so that, your other, this is the reason why. You want your browser to understand that your system is currently in dark mode, and so you want to set this to prefer dark. As soon as you hit apply, it changes, which is good. The next thing is going to be the icon theme. I have, in my 4 years of Rising Hyprland, used pretty much only one icon theme, and that is going to be Papyrus. And I have stuck to this particular one because just look at it. Looks clean, looks material, and looks pretty freaking good. You can use this for lots of different icons, and for especially the folders, you have different colors. I'll show you how you can adjust those in a second. But yeah, these ones look pretty good, and we're going to be using these ones for this particular video. Now, to install them, you just install with -s Papyrus icon theme, Papyrus icon theme, and then you get Papyrus folders as well. I'm going to pass in needed so that I don't have to install them again. Package names are correct. There you go. It's going to skip it. But anyway, yeah. Now, if you want to change the color of the folders, right now they're set to this gray color that you're seeing here. If you want to change that, it's pretty easy. Papyrus folders --help. Okay, it'll ask you to list, show available colors. You can do that. Papyrus folders -L, and then you have all these different colors. If you wanted to, you can go for something like blue or blue-gray. You can even go for something like breeze. For mine, okay, I've chosen gray because it's theme agnostic. So even if I switched away from the Grovebox material theme to a different one, something like regular Grovebox or even Cappuccino, because it's gray and doesn't have a personality of its own when it comes to the color, right? You can use whichever theme that you want, and then it's not going to clash. I used to have black before, but then black was a bit too much. Black, has a personality of its own. If you wanted a color that's even more bland and plain than black, okay, which there is one, surprisingly, that is gray. So you can pick that and then use it for whichever theme that you want, and it's not going to get in the way. So for Papyrus Dark, just select that. Now, as for the cursor, on my main machine, on my main user, I use the macOS cursor. This one looks pretty good, and you can use this because I personally, actually, even though these two look pretty similar, there's a noticeable difference when it comes to the tail of the cursor. So as you're seeing here, the tail of the cursor in this macOS one is really just sharp and cut off and much more well-defined. I personally prefer that. If you want, you can install the same one that I have by typing in -s apple_cursor needed. So you just type that in, and that's the exact same package that's going to give you this macOS cursor. Now, if you want the white version of it, that's what this looks like. This is more of the Windows type, with still with the tail of the cursor cut off, like it is in normal macOS cursor. But anyway, I'm going to choose this one. Now, if you're actually choosing a different cursor, this is a mandatory step that you're going to have to follow, okay? You want to hyperctl, or actually, yeah, hyperctl set cursor 24, and then pass in the name of the cursor if you actually want it to stick. macOS in my case. Okay, now that I've done that, most likely, okay, size is not an integer, seems like. Ah, yes, set cursor macOS 24. Okay, it's okay, and it should work. Now, if it doesn't work at this point, okay, you just have to log out and log back in. So let's set it up so that when we come back, it's actually going to work. I'm going to go to hyper modules, auto start.lua. Now here you want to go over to hl.exec command. You want to type this command out. Okay. First way and see, let's just uncomment this. Exec command. This one is going to be hyperctl set cursor macOS and 24. That's it. Now there's a way to execute a hyperctl command on its own, but for now, in order to keep things simple, let's just put it down like this. Okay, this is basically going to use bash in order to execute the thing, so there's nothing we have to personally worry about. Now let me just check my own personal auto start to make sure that I've gotten the name right. So we'll go to home, user 0.config hyper modules auto start, and for mine it is macOS 24. That's what's been mistaken, so we'll just do it like that, and then run the same command that we ran earlier. Want to make that macOS, enter, and there you go. That the cursor name actually has to be pretty much exactly what you're seeing on NWG look, otherwise it's not going to set it. So I have set that, and now when I hover over any particular app, you see the macOS cursor there. Fantastic. Now let's close these. Let's move on to the final thing, which is going to be the fonts. Now, as for the font settings, in order to make it look the best, okay, you're going to have to change anti-aliasing to RGBA. Make sure to keep font RGBA ordered as RGB. Now, depending on the way that the red, green, and blue stripes in one particular pixel are, basically going to be on your display, you're going to either choose RGB, BGR, or any one of these, okay? Most likely, for most displays, it's going to be RGB. You can test between different options that you have over here, finding out which one is actually the one for your machine, or the one that you personally prefer, because the way that the text renders, depending on what option that you choose here, is a little bit different, and you might prefer a different option, even though one is meant for your monitor. So you're going to have to check that out. As soon as I type this, now I'm going to close and then reopen, but most likely you have already noticed that the app rendering has gotten 10 times better. Now let me just show you with Brave alone, okay? As you can see, it's finally as though anti-aliasing has been turned on, and it looks so much better than it did before. Now, the same goes for Rafi and hell, even Waybar. Just take a look at the Waybar fonts. That has changed too. Pretty fantastic. Now, if you open NWG Look, it actually looks like the font has some sort of, depth and thickness to it. It doesn't look frail like it once did before. You actually have lots of definition in the font, which is awesome. Now, this is exactly what I would keep on my main machine as well. When it comes to font sizes, okay, you're going to have to choose between usually a decimal font size, okay? Right now, I have changed my scale in order to make it a bit bigger for you to see, but if I were on my main machine, my scale would be something like 1 or 1.25. Okay, this one is, I'm guessing 1.25 as well. But anyway, it would be something like 1, and my font size would be something like 11.5 or 11.7 or 11.3. I've made a video in the past about how you can find at which point exactly your font clicks, your particular font. Now this one, 11, looks pretty good. You can even go for something like 11.3. Just make sure to put down the decimal, here, and then figure out when exactly you feel like the font's rendering like immediately gets 10 times better. Now let me show you what that's supposed to be like, right? So let's go with something like 9. As you can see, it doesn't look that good at all. Now if we change it to 10, a little bit better. 11 is when it really starts to, click in. As you can see, 11.1, you notice that there's a slight difference in spacing. Like look at the wizard word here, okay? As soon as I make it 11.1, hold on. Yeah, 11, You see that? The spacing between the Z and the A, it changes like that. 11.2 changes a bit more. 3 doesn't change. 4 changes. 5, 6. Okay, 11.6. You see that? Now let's compare 11 to 11.5, now to 11.6. You notice that the letters just end up growing a little bit more. And then it looks even clearer and even more, what do you call it? Legible, let's just say, okay? So let's just put that down. Let's open Brave so you can actually see a test of what it looks like in the browser. Yeah, looks pretty freaking good. That is for the theming. We have done it for the terminal. We've done it for our app launcher and app launcher. There you go. For our file manager and pretty much for every other app that we could want. If there's anything else when it comes to theming, I will let you know in the next video. And yeah, if you want to learn how to make more setups like this with even more detail, with how to make custom theme switchers like this on your own, okay, like the ones that I show in my videos, with wallpaper switchers, with learning how to make scripts and all that sort of stuff, I cover inside of my program, Hyper Accelerator. So you can go ahead and check that one out. First link in the description. You can go ahead, click it right now and see what it's got for you. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay racing. Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing animations. Now, compared to Hyprland pre-0.55 version 0.55, animations, you had only one way to configure them, okay? And that was using something known as Bezier curves. Well, Bezier curves, they are explained right over here, okay? A cubic Bezier curve is a simple spline defined by 4 points. So you would use these 4 points in order to define how exactly the curve was going to look. Now, if you wanted to design your own Bezier, they say the recommended website is going to be cssportal.com. If instead you wanted to choose from a bunch of Beziers that have already been selected for you, you just go over to easings.net. Now here, you can take a look at all of the different curves that you have, okay? Most of these you have inside of CSS by default, okay? And some of these you do not, in which case you're going to have to go to one of them, copy this line, this particular line, and then put that inside of your CSS wherever you're using it. Now, as for using this particular Bezier curve inside of Hyprland itself, you're going to want to copy these points, okay? The x1, what's this? Let's see, x0, y0, and x1, y1. You're going to want to copy these points and put them inside of this place. Okay, let's go to config hyper modules, modules, and then we'll go to animations. Or do we not have that separated? Okay, it's inside decorations. So here it is, right? So you wanted to basically make a new curve. We'll just call this something like, okay, let's see, this is ease in back. This is what it looks like. Or we can actually pick a better curve. Ease in out cubic is pretty good. Is that here? Okay, that is here. Okay, it's ease in out quart. Okay, this one's also pretty good. Let's just copy and paste this one. You have ease in out quart. Put that down there. And then just get rid of all this extra space. Good to do. Okay, that's done. Now, as for the points, just take the points, you copy them, and then you put them inside of this points table here. So you put that down, and then 0.24, and then this is going to be 1. Turn this to 0.24, and then that's 1, and then as soon as you do that, that's done. Now, whenever you're using ease out quint, you just want to replace that with, let's say, replace ease out quint with something like ease, okay, not every single instance. Let's just call it quint. I'm gonna get rid of that with ease. Okay, no, we really have to get rid of the entire thing, so let's just do that. %s ease in out quint. Okay, now come on. It's actually ease out quint, so you want to replace this one, ease out quint, with ease in out quart. You do that, and then here you go back and then change this to ease out quint, back to what it was before. Quint, do that. And now, if you just check out the opening animations, that's what it looks like. And honestly, this looks freaking 10 times better than what we had before, so we're actually going to be keeping that. As for Windows out, that's linear for whatever reason. Did we change anything? It seems like that became ease in out quart. Okay. Let's try it for Windows. Okay, for Windows in. So ease in out quart. Whoops. Quart, and then you copy the same word. Paste it down here. And okay, it's a, let's see here. This, okay, no, hold on. Something's going on here. Okay, what does it say? No such spring, ease in out chord. So where's that? Ease in out chord. What's going on? Well, yes, it's because these two spring curves. So you want to change these to Béziers. So Bézier, no such Bézier easy, of course. This one, just change this one to ease in out chord as well. Put that down. Okay, now that's what it looks like. I mean, I guess it works for a certain kind of thing. So yeah, we'll just keep it like this for now. If you want to change it, just make sure to pick a particular curve from here and then copy the points and paste them in right over here. Awesome. So that is for a Bezier curve. Okay, simply put, it's the kind of curves that you would come across inside of CSS. Okay, done. Then we have another type of curve, which is a spring curve. Now this one is commonly found on Apple systems and defined by properties known as mass, stiffness, and damping, or dampening, depending on what framework you're using. In our case, it's going to be Hyprland, and so it's dampening in our case. Now here, they say it's generally recommended to keep mass at 1 and then adjust stiffness and dampening alone. Okay, so there's a website which allows you to mess around with different aspects or different properties, seeing what affects the animation exactly how. So for this one, mass, okay, we'll just go through this really quickly so you can get an idea of how exactly to use springs in animations, okay? Now mass refers to the heft of the thing we're moving, okay? Heavier object will move more slowly, but it also has more inertia. So these two springs, they're identical aside from their mass. So if you move this one doesn't exactly, have that bouncy springy effect, but this one does simply because this, thingy is of greater mass. Yeah, so they say that your intuition should come in handy here. So just imagine how heavier items would respond when being hung on a string, right? So compare this lighter item being put on this spring compared to this heavy kettlebell being used on the same spring. And if you're able to visualize it in your head, it's basically the exact same as how it's going to show up inside of the curve over here. Next thing is tension. So tension, in this case, refers to how tightly wound the spring is. So the tighter the spring, the more energy is released, leading to a snappy, bouncy animation. So check this out. String isn't really tightly wound at all, which means that the animation's very slow and then sluggish, and then there's no bounce at the end. This one is a very tightened spring, and so because you pull on it, okay, that immediately shifts back to its original position and then causes it to bounce a bit, even more than its initial position. In some libraries, this parameter is called stiffness. Now, in R specifically, we have stiffness. So stiffness in this case is going to be tension. Mass is the same. And then you have dampening, which is friction in this case, okay? Now, they say here that friction is maybe the hardest to visualize because it's not a characteristic of the spring itself. Rather, it's a characteristic of the environment that the spring exists within, okay? Environment or the universe. Environment would actually be a better way to describe this instead of calling it a different universe entirely, okay? So here, let's imagine that we were transported to an alien parallel universe, okay? One with a completely different environment without any friction. So here, this is normal. This is the alien universe without any friction. Now, friction is actually what causes this little kettlebell over here to stop. Because you have air molecules, okay? And because the kettlebell collides with them, because of friction, caused due to, movement of the kettlebell through space and its collision with air molecules and stuff, basically this thing is going to be stopped. It's not going to go on forever. And because you do not have any friction in this alien parallel universe, most likely because there is no air, which means there are no air molecules to stop this particular thing. You might even consider this to be in a vacuum, okay? You have this thing moving around just forever. This alternative universe, springs will oscillate forever because friction is the force that dampens the motion. So as you sprinkle more friction into the universe, the spring becomes less and less bouncy, and this is called damping. That's it. Now here they have a small note for gravity. None of these scenarios take gravity into account. While that would be more realistic, it doesn't factor into how springs are actually used when it comes to animations, right? So we have not taken gravity into account. Perfect. Now, instead of me explaining a bit more of the physics of how physics and math of how spring curves work, it's better if I just show you. So let's create a new curve and then we'll use that. Awesome. So this one is most likely going to be easily understood if I go with the windows in and windows out. So that's what we will be using. So spring, change this to spring, and spring, change easy in out quart. You want to change that to easy. Change this to easy as well. And let's see. Yep, those three. Now, This is what it looks like. Spring curve also actually looks pretty freaking decent. Now, mass, ideally you want to keep that at 1, but let me just show you what happens if you increase it to something like 10, okay? Yeah, very heavy, and then you have that bouncy effect simply because of the inertia of this particular window. You can kind of think of the window as being that kind of kettlebell that we saw earlier, and it becomes, much easier to understand. So let's move this to something like 0.1. Okay, so number less than or equal to 5.5 actually, so let's make that. So what's to say? Mass expects a number. Okay, well, let's try 0.8. Does that work? Okay, 0.8 works. That's what it looks like. Pretty snappy because it's actually very light. If you wanted to increase the mass a bit more, then you can, of course, go ahead and do that. Maybe something like 1.2 for the mass. There's going to be, yeah, it just feels a bit heavier when it comes to the movement of the window. Awesome. So you have mass set to 1. Now let's try something like 171 for the stiffness. Yep, that's a very, very stiff window. Very stiff spring that the window is operating off of, okay? Now if you were to reduce that to something like 17, guess what happens? It's extremely slow in order to snap into position. So there's definitely a point where you're gonna reach equilibrium, right? A point where the window doesn't open up too slowly or too quickly. That would most likely be something around 70 or 80. 75 seems to be a pretty good option for us to go with. 75, okay, freaking perfect. Let's stick with 75. And then you have dampening, which is going to be friction. So let's increase the friction, see what happens. We'll change it to something like 115. Yeah, lots of friction. You can basically imagine that the entire wallpaper, instead of being a bunch of clouds, which actually symbolizes a lack of friction, but let's just say in this case, this is water, which means that you're going to have the window opening up inside of a really thick fluid, which causes it to look like this. Very, very slow when it comes to opening and closing for that matter. Now let's try something like barely any friction, okay, something like 5. And yeah, it's pretty bouncy because it has no friction whatsoever. There's no heavy resin that the window is opening up inside of, so it actually opens up pretty quickly and is bouncy as well. Let's try something. There's a sweet spot for this one as well. Let's go with something like 15. Okay, perfect. That is absolutely perfect. Awesome. If you wanted to slow the animation down a bit more, you can just change the speed over here. Now the speed is controlled through a little something known as deciseconds, okay? DS stands for deciseconds, and 1 decisecond is 100 milliseconds. So if you wanted to change it to 500, you just change it to 5.1, make the animation a bit slower, and oh my god, that is freaking perfect. Yep, that is honestly perfect. Or you might even go for something like 4.5, 4.54, 0.5 here as well. No idea why they use such freaking weird ass decimals when they could just use something much simpler, but okay. There you go. Works pretty fantastically. Awesome. Now, next thing, let's just change it for our layer, and then we'll just call it done. Once we're finished with that, I'm going to change this to spring and string. I want to change this to easy, 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 and then easy as well. Okay, that's what it looks like. And yeah, whoops. Well, that's fine. And let's see, style is fade. Now you want to actually turn it off, dim around, because yeah, it's just much better with it off. Now where exactly is dim around? Because it doesn't seem to be here. Config, hyper, let's check out where else it could be. Auto start, layout, is that here? No. It seems like it would be something that's inside of... Ah, yes, I'm pretty sure it's in window rules. Dim around. Yep, you want to turn that to false. False. Okay, now. Okay, yep, 10 times better. That's exactly what it's supposed to be like. Ah, as for the border, you actually want that to be quick and linear. So where's that? The border, yep, you want that to be something like almost linear. Almost linear. Let's see if that makes it better. Basically, don't want it to be extremely slow, and yep, it's extremely slow. Okay, let's see whether... Okay, quick. See if that's any better. Quick. Does that help? Open up 2 windows. Yup, quick is actually quick. And feels pretty quick too. Now we just have to increase the speed of the animation. Okay. Yes, that's exactly how it's supposed to work. Make it a bit more responsive. See... Ah, we changed the wrong thing. Well, ain't that fun. Toot, 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 toot. Much faster. Let's try 3.39. Yes, that's exactly how it's supposed to feel. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know when it comes to animations. There's more stuff, like you have the animation tree. I have covered this in a different video. There's going to be just 2 or 3 more settings that are, different compared to the last video that I've made. But I'm pretty sure these are intuitive enough for you to figure out on your own. And that's pretty much it. That is how you can use a Bezier curve, how you can use a spring curve, in order to customize your animations on Hyprland. If you want more cool stuff like this, if you enjoy the way that I teach, and you want to learn more about the entirety of the Hyprland wiki and secret tips and tricks that I have learned over my 4 years of writing Hyprland, if you want to basically download my brain and the way that I think, not just copy and paste dot files, the way that I actually think and make rices that I do, how exactly I make rices that look so freaking good every single time, basically just, riffing it, going off on my own without exactly anything in mind, then go ahead, click the first link in the description and check out the program. It's called Hyper Accelerator, and it teaches you exactly how to think to make rices as fantastic as the ones that I do, okay? I actually super believe that it's important for you to learn the way that I actually think and get stuff done instead of just copying and pasting stuff. That doesn't mean that I don't help you out with my dot files or with any, copy pastable stuff that you're going to have to use. I give you that as well. But the main thing that you learn from that program, the main transformation that you make, is you being able to think for yourself, which is especially important in the age where every other rice is made by AI. Yours is simply going to stand out because it's not using the same fucking colors that every single rice is on r/Unix point. If you want, you can go ahead, click the first link right now and check out the program. Finally, take your rice to the next level. If you liked the video, hit like. If you loved it and want to see more like this in your feed, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Stay ricing.